What's up guys, this is your favorite fanfic YouTuber, the Fanfic Majesty, and welcome to another amazing video. You can follow me on Patreon for exclusive stories. Tuco Chapter 21. Pirate Crow peeved, ha 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 ha. Luo Te and Zoro both burst out laughing. Ling Er only realized now that the two did this on purpose, and glared at Luo Te with some reproach. Then he explained to Usopp with an embarrassed look, we are indeed pirates, but we may be different from the pirates you imagine. What we yearn for is freedom and unrestrainedness. Not treasure and robbery. Usopp raised his head, and his pupils gradually focused. This is indeed Zailuobu village. Are you really here for tourism? Traveling is indeed only one purpose, and there is another purpose, which is to find my long-lost brother. Usopp stood up tremblingly. Brother? Who is he? I know most of the people in this village. Tell me. His name is Klo, and he was also a pirate before. I heard that he came to this island a year ago. So I came to find him. Luo Te held a dogtail grass picked from somewhere in his mouth, and the whole person was very leisurely. Crow? Usopp frowned and tried to search for the name in his mind. After a long time, he shook his head. Why don't we go to the largest restaurant in the village to ask around? There are so many people there that we might be able to find out some information about your brother. Luo Te nodded slowly. Okay, let's try the local specialties. Inside the restaurant. Gulp gulp, hiccup. Zoro took a big sip of wine, put the glass on the table, pointed to the villa on the top of the mountain outside the window and said, I haven't found out any information, but there is a wealthy family there. Maybe they know about Crow. Hearing Zoro mention the wealthy family on the top of the mountain, Usopp dodged his gaze several times and hesitated a little. That family hardly comes to the village, They probably don't know. I've settled the bill, so I'll go home first. After that, Usopp left. Zoro looked at Usopp who escaped in a panic and said with some doubt, Luo Te, is this kid hiding something from us? Luo Te stuffed the last piece of beef in the bowl into his mouth, wiped his mouth and stood up, probably, I want to ignore him. Let's go to that villa and take a look. Mountain top. Kaya Villa. Why are you here? Usopp looked at Luo Te and the other two who appeared in the courtyard with an unbelievable look on his face. How did I disturb your date? Luo Te looked at Usopp with some joking, and then looked at the sickly blonde girl in the window on the second floor. What nonsense are you talking about? Hearing Luo Te's ridicule, Usopp blushed directly, and the blonde girl also looked a little unnatural. Three of you, may I ask who you are? Usopp scratched his head awkwardly and explained. Kaya, they're my partners in the pirate group, and now they're calling me. But before Usopp finished speaking, he heard a somewhat frightened voice from the side. Miss Kaya, run away. They're pirates, and they're big pirates with a bounty of 200 million. Looking at the voice, he saw a man with a pair of goat horns on his head and a head full of white curly hair appearing in the courtyard. Mary, what did you say? They're pirates? Kaya's originally pale cheeks now looked even paler. Oh, it seems that your village is not completely without intersection with the outside world. I am indeed the pirate Luo Te. Luo Te nodded and showed a kind expression. What are you doing here? Mary took out a pistol and pointed it at Luo Te, with a warning look on her face. But the hand holding the gun was shaking a little, and he almost didn't hold it. What a joke, the pirate standing in front of him was a big pirate with a bounty of 200 million, and he had only seen this kind of bounty in legends. Luo Te glanced at Meili calmly, stretched out his right hand, and activated the electromagnetic force. The pistol actually broke away from Meili's control and slowly flew towards Luo Te. Luo Te took the pistol in his hand and played with it. This kind of thing can be used to scare children, but don't point it at me. Mary was so scared that she collapsed on the ground, and she seemed to use up her last bit of strength to shout to the second floor window. Miss Kaya, run away. Hey, what's going on? Pirate Luo Te, what are you doing here? At this time, a somewhat gentle voice came. Have you appeared? Pirate Klo. A man in a suit with a big back hair walked out from the shadow of the villa. The man pushed his glasses with his right palm and said, What Klo? I am the housekeeper here, Klobator. Linger looked at the glasses man in front of him with some curiosity, and then looked at Luo Te. Full of doubts, he whispered in Luo Te's ear. Hey, Luo Te, are you sure this is your brother? You two don't look alike at all. Luo Te looked at Klo in front of him. This conspirator, whose IQ in the minds of some One Piece fans in the previous life was second only to Ben Beckman, looked similar to the comics. He turned to Linger and said solemnly, Linger, you don't understand. He is my half-brother. Linger's eyes widened. What half-brother? But you two really don't look alike. Zoro's face next to him was flushed. If he hadn't been specially trained, he might have laughed out loud. Chloe didn't know what Luo Te wanted to do for a moment. He knew that Luo Te's strength would not do anything tricky. Luo Te activated the electromagnetic fruit and sent the message, Chloe, you should know who I am, and I know who you are. I'll wait for you on the north coast tonight, into Chloe's ears. Then he said to the yellow-haired girl on the second floor who was almost exhausted, It seems that my brother is not here, so I'm sorry to bother you, Miss Kaya. After that, he took the lead to walk out of the villa. Zoro and Linger followed. On the northern coast of Shilaw village, the sunset dyed the sky golden. The clouds were blushing and hanging in the air. Pirate Luo Te, what do you want to do? Luo Te sat on the stone without looking back, and only a voice came. Crow, I know everything about you, I came here just to find you. Indeed, Luo Te came to Zailuobu village just to find Crow. In his previous life, he knew that Crow had a high IQ and was very cunning, and was a rare conspirator. He also knew that Crow was not a bad person, although some of his methods seemed a bit cruel, he was always holding back. And those cruel rumors were just public opinion created by Marine to discredit him. Overall, Crow was a good person. Why did you come to me? Crow knew that he was not Luo Te's opponent, and such a big pirate came to him specially, so he had to give him such face. If Luo Te wanted to do something to him, he didn't have to discuss it with him at all, and he didn't have to do this. Come and be my partner. Luo Te stretched out a hand in front of Crow. Crow's face was full of question marks. What's going on? Why? He has his pride and confidence, but he doesn't think he is special enough to make a pirate with a bounty of 200 million worry about him. Pirate Crow, nicknamed 100 Stratagems, captain of the Black Cat Pirates. Luo Te slowly told the information about Crow he saw in the comics. His expression was still indifferent as he looked at Crow. But the more Crow listened, the more frightened he became. He looked at Luo Te in front of him in disbelief. If it wasn't their first meeting, he really thought Luo Te was his twin brother. How is it? After saying that, Luo Te looked up at Crow. Chapter 22. Chloe joins. Chloe did not answer immediately. As a pirate with high IQ and many years of experience on the sea, Chloe seemed a little cautious. But, as a pirate with a bounty of 200 million, you should be able to find a stronger partner, right? Of course, the stronger the partner, the better, but the right partner is the best, isn't it? Luo Te looked at Chloe with a slight smile on his face. My name is Clobator. The former pirate Chloe is dead. Now I just want to be an honest butler. Chloe pushed his glasses with his signature gesture. Others may not know what you want to do, but do you think you can hide it from me? Luo Te looked at Chloe with some joking. Hearing this, Chloe's heart sank. He naturally believed in his own methods and it was unlikely that others would find out. But the person in front of him told him all about his life, and he was really unsure whether Luo Te really knew his plan. As 100 strategies, is this all you pursue? Our goal is the whole world. Hearing Luo Te's words, Chloe was particularly shocked. Their goal is actually the world. Kuro, I am confident that I can be the strongest in this world, but my dream is quite far away, and I can't accomplish it alone. I need Zoro's swordsmanship, Linger's cooking skills, your strategies, etc. Luo Te paused and continued. My goal is not to get this world and become the celestial dragons who are high above. It is to change this world that is filled with dirty air from top to bottom. And your talent and IQ should not be wasted in such a place, so come to help me? Come and help me change this world? Kuro was shocked. Such words were actually spoken by a pirate with a bounty of 200 million. After a long time, Kuro stretched out his hand and shook it tightly with Luo Te. Then I'll leave it to you from now on, Captain Luo Te. Let me formally introduce myself. My name is Kuro, the former captain of the Black Cat Pirates. Luo Te smiled. Welcome, I am Luo Te. This is the swordsman on the ship, Roranoa Zoro. This beautiful woman is the cook on the ship, I'm Linger. Ding. Congratulations host, partner search mission progress +1. Rewards. Indestructible weather stick 1, advanced observation Haki 1, Senzu beans 2000. Merge all cards. Ding, fusion successful. Open personal panel. Name. Luo Te. Gender, male, physique, advanced. Observation Haki. Advanced, special, foresee the future, 20s, insight into people's hearts. Armament Haki. Advanced. Conqueror's Haki, intermediate. Devil fruit development. Advanced. Luo Te nodded. Now he will fight Kizaru again. He believes that even if Kizaru knows his ability, he can still fight to a draw. Zoro and Linger both looked at Kuro with smiles on their faces. They did not ask Luo Te why he invited Kuro to be a partner. They knew that Luo Te must have his reasons for doing so. They also believe in their captain. Captain, when will we set off again? That depends on when you can set off. I still have some things to deal with here, it may take a few days. Kuro thought about it. He wanted to hand over the duties of the housekeeper completely. Many details had to be handed over, and the Black Cat Pirates hiding in the dark were waiting for him. Okay. We'll wait for you. By the way, I'm going to Kaya now. Do you want to come with me? Luo Te stood up and looked at Kuro. Since Usopp is the partner of his apprentice Luffy, and Kaya is Usopp's designated wife, he has to do something for her. Alas, Kuro sighed for a long time. After Luo Te's remarks just now, he is now relieved. His mentality has also changed. His vision has also changed, and naturally he will not be limited to the property of a big family in a village. But he knows that he will always have to explain all this to the eldest lady and always have to face it. What's more, Kaya is still weak and sick. I don't know if Kaya can hold on after knowing the truth. As 100 plans, Kuro can calculate everything in his plan, but this eldest lady Kaya, he really has no way to deal with it. Luo Te, who had read the comics, knew that Chloe still had deep feelings for Kaya. Now it was time to confess, and it was normal for Chloe to not know how to face Kaya. Luo Te patted Chloe on the shoulder. Don't worry, Kaya is not as fragile as you think, and her psychological endurance is still very strong. Chloe nodded helplessly and walked towards the mountaintop villa with the three of them. What? Crab ate. Cough cough cough. Is everything you just said true? Cough cough cough. Kaya looked at the housekeeper in front of her who always cared about her and protected her in disbelief. She couldn't believe what Chloe had just said, and she didn't believe that all this was just a deliberate disguise to get their family's property. It's true, Miss Kaya. I did all this for your family's property. Chloe lowered his head, not daring to face the beautiful and gentle lady in front of him. Meili also looked a little angry on the side. Crab ate, are you doing this to the master who just passed away? Chloe felt a little guilty, didn't look up, and didn't speak. Usopp stood quietly on the side. Luo Te looked at the awkward scene and cleared his throat. I know this is your family affair. As an outsider and a pirate, some of my words may not be right, but to be fair, Chloe has not done anything to let you down in this year. On the contrary, he has done a lot. Luo Te looked up at Kaya and continued, although his purpose is not simple. But as a butler, he is still dedicated and responsible. And he can just kill you, right? Kaya looked up at Luo Te. From the first time she saw Luo Te, she knew that Luo Te was different from ordinary pirates. The whole person exudes a casual and gentle atmosphere and does not look like a pirate at all. And she also knows that Crabate is not a bad person. In fact, she is very grateful to him in her heart, because after her father passed away half a year ago, Crabate took care of herself like a father. Miss Kaya, now I am going to go to sea with Luo Te and do my job. Chloe looked up and looked at Kaya tenderly. Chloe treated Kaya like a daughter in the past year, and he was still reluctant to part with her. He didn't know if Kaya would eat well without his care, if there would be no one to boil medicine, if... Krabatel, are you? Daughter, you really going to leave? Kaya was still reluctant after all. Miss Kaya, I will be leaving in 2 days. You should find a reliable housekeeper, not someone like me with impure intentions. In the next 2 days, Chloe wholeheartedly handed over all the details that Kaya needed to pay attention to Meili. In the next 2 days, he disbanded the Black Cat Pirates, which originally had little cohesion. Chapter 23. Arrival at Kokoyashi Village. West Rob Village, North Blue Shore. Hey, Luo Te, are you sure you don't want to invite me to be your vice captain? Usopp looked at Luo Te with hope in his eyes. These days, he got news about his father from Luo Te, and he also knew that Luo Te and his crew were also a pirate group that yearned for freedom. So he also wanted to go out to sea with Luo Te. Luo Te walked to Usopp and patted him gently. Kid, you are too young, and now is not the best time for you to go out to sea. There will be a boy with a straw hat to invite you to go out to sea in the future. He is your captain. Usopp nodded. He had seen Luo Te clearly in the past few days. He felt that Luo Te was a prophet. He knew a lot of things in this world, just like a fortune teller. So he agreed with Luo Te's words very much. Let's go, take good care of Kaya, and study the sniper manual given to you. Don't bury Usopp's good genes. Hearing this, Kaya looked at Luo Te with a blushing face. Kaya was no longer as delicate and sick as she was a few days ago. Luo Te used the power of the electromagnetic fruit to eliminate some abnormal electromagnetic waves in her body. So now her body has become much better, and it will only get better in the future. Looking at the skybreaker going away, Usopp tightened the manual in his hand and thought to himself, we will definitely meet again, and I hope we can help you then. Skybreaker. Let's welcome Chloe to join us, cheers. Oh, although there were not many people, the banquet still took a lot of time. Ding. Partner search task progress +1. Get rewards. Never broken t-shirt, never broken shorts, never broken slippers, system space upgraded to 20*20, 1 billion Baileys. Hearing the system prompt sound in his mind, Luo Te remembered that he had not used the cards before. System. Merge all cards. Ding. Fusion successful. Open the personal panel. Name. Luo Te. Gender. Male. Age. 17.3 years old. Observation Haki. Advanced. Special type. Foresee the future. Understand people's hearts. Armament Haki. Advanced. Conqueror's Haki. Intermediate. Physical skills. Advanced. Electromagnetic fruit development. Advanced. No side effects. Pirate ship Skybreaker. Intermediate. This electromagnetic fruit has no side effects, which should mean immunity to sea stone and seawater. Luo Te nodded with satisfaction. According to his calculation, he should be able to tie with Kizaru when he meets him now, or even have a slight advantage. Luo Te reached out and took out a devil fruit from the system space. It was the zone devil fruit, the mythical beast species bird fruit pung form. This fruit was obviously meant for Chloe. Combined with Chloe's speed and weapons, he felt that this fruit was the most suitable for Chloe. Chloe, this is for you. As he said this, he threw the devil fruit, which looked like a defense, to Chloe. Chloe took the devil fruit and looked at Luo Te with some questions. This is the zone bird fruit pung form. It is also a mythical beast species, which is tailor-made for you, for example. After listening to Luo Te's introduction, Klo finally ate the devil fruit that looked like a piece of paper. Then Luo Te handed Klo the Haki training manual to Klo. He believed that with Klo's IQ, learning Haki should be very easy. After doing all this, he turned the bow of the boat and headed towards Kokoa West Village. Luo Te walked slowly to the bow. Zoro was training in the observation room, while Linger was training in the gravity room. Kuro was familiarizing himself with the ability he had just acquired. After 5 days of sailing, the Skybreaker was approaching the waters of Kokoa West Village. Bang! Crash! A huge figure appeared on the sea surface at the bow. Luo Te, who was meditating at the bow, slowly opened his eyes. He looked at the monster in front of him and smiled faintly. Isn't this the monster, Mu, of Arlong Park? Zoro and the other two who were originally training also came to Luo Te's side. Luo Te, is this the food for tonight? Linger asked curiously. Don't worry, it may be our boatman. Help us pull the boat. Luo Te shook his head and responded. Then a red light flashed in his eyes, and a very oppressive momentum rushed towards the sea monster in front of him. The sea monster, Mu, who had just bared his teeth, trembled all over in an instant, with a trace of fear in his expression, and tears were about to fall. He turned around and was about to flee into the distance. Wait. The figure of Mu, who had just turned around, paused, slowly turned around to face Luo Te, with tears in his eyes. He looked so aggrieved, and his expression was like a bullied child. Looking at the sea monster in front of him, Luo Te had to sigh at the magic of the pirate world. A sea monster has such a high IQ. You should know where Kokoa West Village is. Take us there, and we will let you go after we get there. The sea monster looked at Luo Te with some doubts. Don't worry, we keep our word, Linger promised at this time. But when the sea monster saw the saliva hanging from the corner of Linger's mouth, he trembled even more. Seeing this scene, Klo couldn't help laughing out loud. Okay, let's go. After successfully towing the Skybreaker to the shore of Kokoa West Village, Luo Te quickly sent Mu away. With permission, Mu dived into the sea and swam away as fast as he could. Let's go to the village and take a look, Luo Te said, jumping off the boat and walking towards the depths of the village. Seeing this, Zoro and the other two also jumped off the boat. The four of them stood there as soon as they reached the entrance of the village. I saw that the houses in front of me were built very strangely, most of them were inverted shapes, and the roof became the bottom of the house. The streets were full of gullies, and there was no one in sight, as if it had suffered some natural disaster and turned directly into a dead village. Linger was a little scared, hugged Luo Te's arm tightly, and buried his little head deeply in the gap between Luo Te's arm and body. The voice trembled. Luo Te, are you sure our navigator is a normal human being, not a ghost? A ghost? Luo Te touched Linger's head. He was shocked at this moment. He had already felt it was incredible when he read comics in his previous life. Now he was in it, and the shock he brought to him was incomparable. He couldn't help but sigh that the mermaid's arm strength might not be just 10 times that of humans. Zoro also said in disbelief. Is this the architectural style of this village? Why is there no one on the street? Or did something terrible happen here? Hearing Zoro's words, Linger became even more scared. Hey, green algae head, don't say such scary words. Klo walked to a house calmly and took a look at the contact between the roof and the ground. Then he turned into a big rock and flew to the top of the house and took a closer look. He teleported to Luo Te. Yes, it was teleportation, which was the effect of the bird fruit. When the rock soars up with the wind, it can reach 90,000 miles. You can imagine how fast the rock is. Now Klo's speed is almost the same as Luo Te's. Chapter 24. Are there any oranges for sale here? Dapeng transformed into Klo's figure and slowly spoke. I just looked at it. It doesn't look like the unique architectural style of this place. It should be man-made. What? Man-made? Linger was a little surprised at Klo's conclusion. Zoro also looked at Klo in disbelief. Klo pushed his glasses habitually and continued. To be precise, it should not be a person. I just went to see that the roof and the ground are not connected together, but it is directly placed on the ground. At the same time, the foundation structure above the house is very consistent with the ground. So the house here should have been a normal building. Hearing this, Luo Te nodded. Linger ran behind Luo Te and looked around, fearing that something weird would appear. Zoro said at this time, Kuro, what do you mean by not being human? Kuro then analyzed. There is a handprint on the foundation of the house, and the handprint is deeply sunken into the foundation of the house. I think something turned the house upside down. Linger poked his head out from behind Luo Te. Isn't that still a human? I also saw a thin layer of depression between the handprints, which is most likely the mark of the jade. A beam of light reflected from Kuro's eyes. He then analyzed. All signs indicate that this should be done by another race, the fishmen, and the sea monster just now is obviously not a species that East Blue should have. I think it should be a creature from the Grand Line. So I have reason to suspect that all this was done by the fishmen who escaped from the Grand Line, and just now I passed a large building, and the flag painted on it looked like a shark. Isn't the conclusion here? This village may have been occupied or even massacred by the fishmen in that building. and there is at least one sharkfish man in that building, and it is a megalodon sharkman. After listening to Crow's analysis, Luo Te couldn't help but give him a thumbs up. He is used to observing details, thinking carefully, and analyzing logically. He is worthy of being called, by G. I heard that the fishmen have arm strength 10 times greater than that of humans. It seems that this is correct. Zoro nodded and admired Klo. Linger had never heard of the fishmen, and didn't know what species they were, but since they could kill an entire village, they must not be good people. He hugged Luo Te's arm tightly and said, Luo Te, you said that the navigator should have been killed by the fishmen. Let's run away. Luo Te knocked Linger on the head. What is your observation Haki for? Try to sense it. Linger pouted and looked at Luo Te aggrievedly, then activated his observation Haki. Hey, why are there so many living people? The largest orange orchard in Kokoa West Village. Looking at the large orange trees in front of him, and the oranges full of fruits. Zoro couldn't help but sigh. There is actually a paradise in this ruined village. Luo Te walked to the door of the only family here and knocked gently. Dong dong dong, hello, is anyone there? Creaky, the door was opened and a girl appeared in front of him. A head of blue ear-length hair was decorated with a red headband just right, healthy wheat-colored skin, and blue tattoos from the chest to the arms. Looking at the strange man in front of her, the blue-haired girl was very alert. The man was quite handsome and his tone was quite gentle. He looked young but his eyes were very deep, revealing the vicissitudes that should not be seen at this age. However, she still asked politely, Excuse me, who are you looking for? I see there is a large orange orchard here. Are there oranges for sale here? I want to buy some oranges. Hearing that she was here to buy oranges, the blue-haired girl was a little less vigilant. Noki Gao, who is it? Another girl appeared at the door with the voice. This girl looks a little younger than the blue-haired girl. She has short orange hair, big eyes, and is very pretty. Her figure is already well formed under her yellow t-shirt, and her blue jeans make her proportions look perfect. This little girl is obviously Nami, Luo Te's designated navigator. Looking at Nami, Luo Te tried to explain in the most gentle voice. Hello, my name is Luo Te. I am a passing merchant. I saw a large orange orchard here, so I wanted to buy some oranges. Hearing Luo Te's words, Nami's face suddenly showed a smile, but how much sincerity was in it was unknown. She instantly turned into a merchant and said, My name is Nami, this is my sister Nokigo. The oranges on this mountain are all planted by the two of us, how many do you want? She hoped that Luo Te would buy more oranges, preferably 100 million Baileys, although they did not have so many oranges. It depends on whether the man in front of him is willing to be the scapegoat. And Nokigo's eyes were still a little wary. The more she looked at him, the more familiar he looked, but she couldn't think of where she had seen him for a while. But she still politely invited Luo Te to come in and talk in detail. Hello, how many oranges do you want to buy? As soon as she entered the house, Nami couldn't wait to ask, and her eyes turned into Baileys. Seeing this, Luo Te couldn't help but complain in his heart, you are indeed a little money grubber. The corners of his mouth slightly raised, and he said, I want to buy 100 million Baileys of oranges. Oh, 100 million Baileys. Nami nodded, looking a little disappointed. What, 100 million Baileys? Nami only heard it clearly that it was 100 million Baileys. Luo Te looked at the little thief with some amusement, nodded and responded. You heard it right, it is 100 million Baileys. Noki Gao on the side was also shocked by Luo Te's big breath and was speechless. Nami had imagined that someone would come to buy oranges one day, and then sell them at a high price of 100 million Baileys. But when a buyer of 100 million Baileys really appeared, she didn't expect that the man in front of her was really such a fool. Do you have 100 million Baileys? Luo Te didn't speak, but pretended to take out a black suitcase from behind, but actually in the system space. Click. The bright bills were placed in front of Nami. Although Nami really loves money, this is the first time she has seen so much money, she was really shocked. But how could someone who could easily take out 100 million Baileys be simple? For a moment, she lowered her head and stammered, but the oranges here don't even have 100 million Baileys. Luo Te looked at the little girl with a smile, then how much do you need to save to reach 100 million Baileys? Oh, more than 40 million. Hey, what do you mean? Nami reacted and jumped away with a vigilant look on her face. At this time, Nochigo also reacted, covering his mouth and speaking from his fingers. I remember, are you? Are you called Luo Te? The pirate with a bounty of 200 million from East Blue? What? 2.200 million Baileys. Nami almost shouted out while covering her mouth. Looking at the reactions of the two girls, Luo Te was not overly surprised, but just nodded lightly. If there is no one else named Luo Te, then you should be talking about me. After getting Luo Te's recognition, Nochigo quickly protected Nami behind him and stared at Luo Te as if he was facing a great enemy. Hey, I really want to buy oranges. Luo Te picked up an orange from the table and peeled it. Nami had seen many pirates, and she could feel that Luo Te was different from the pirates she had met before. He was not as arrogant and bandit-like as those pirates. She asked tentatively, Are you really here to buy oranges? Luo Te put a slice of orange into his mouth, and his pupils dilated instantly. FK, is it so delicious? He smiled and said, really? Can a big shot like me make up a lie to you? Nokigao stared at him in a daze, trying to see something from his face. Alas, she sighed and secretly made the worst plan in her heart. Chapter 25. Nami Nokigo knew that the only thing that was still valuable to the man in front of her was their bodies. And with this man's strength, he should be able to get them easily without the excuse of selling oranges. But now the situation was stronger than the person, so she could only believe that Luo Te was here to buy oranges. Nokigo thought about it and started to worry again. She knew that these big men had strange tempers. And according to the normal price, the oranges in their entire garden were only worth 200,000 Baileys. If they couldn't get 100 million Baileys of oranges by then, would they? Helplessly, she could only tentatively say, I don't know how many oranges we have here. Nami and I will go up the mountain to pick them for you first. But she thought that if she could delay it for a while, she might be able to fool people by selling them miserably. Then I'll go and help too. Luo Te threw the last orange slice into his mouth and stood up to respond. Hey, Luo Te, look at those two people over there. They look so strange. Their skin is actually green. They even have gills next to their ears. Luo Te looked in the direction of Ling Er's finger and sure enough, he saw two very wretched backs walking away. Could that be the fishmen? I can smell a fishy smell from a long distance. Zoro put his left hand on the hilt of the knife, and his expression became gloomy. Just as Luo Te broke off a branch from the orange tree next to him and was about to attack the fishmen, his hand was pulled back. Luo Te, while those two fishmen haven't noticed, let's go this way quickly. Looking back, he found that it was Nami. What's wrong? Luo Te felt warm in his heart. Nami was not afraid of him because he was a big pirate. She was really beautiful and kind. Nokigo also hurriedly explained softly. They are the fishmen, from Arlong Park. If they are discovered, their lives will be in danger. The two women did not know Luo Te's strength, but as the two who had seen Arlong's terrifying power with their own eyes, they still did not want Luo Te to be killed by Arlong. The four Luo Te people did not object, but followed the two Nami sisters lightly to hide away. Nokigo looked around vigilantly, and stopped only after confirming that it was temporarily safe. Linger was a little puzzled by the two women's vigilance. What's wrong? Are those two fishmen scary? In her perception of observation, those two mermaids can still be easily dealt with. You should have seen what the village looked like when you came to the island, right? Nokigo said and looked behind him again, fearing that the two fishmen would follow. Hearing this, Luo Te and the others nodded. That is. Nokigo told the story of what happened in Kokoa West Village and the death of his adoptive mother, Barumel. After hearing Nokigo's resentful words, Zoro and the other two were all angry. They didn't expect the truth to be even more cruel than what Klo had guessed. Linger was the first to lose patience, clenching his fists. I'm going to make them all into grilled fish and throw them to the wild dogs to eat. Zoro grinned. Maybe the wild dogs don't like them because they're fishy. Hey, keep your voice down. The hearing of the fishmen is several times that of humans. Nijigo hurriedly made a gesture to keep quiet, fearing that the fishmen would hear him. Since the fishmen have occupied this small village, have you ever thought about leaving this island? Klo pushed his glasses habitually and asked. Nijigo sighed and said, it's not easy to leave this village where you have lived all your life. What's more? As she said that, she looked at Nami lovingly. But I will succeed soon. At this time, Nami clenched her fists and spoke confidently. Oh, what do you mean by success soon? Do you have any plans? Linger looked at Nami with a bit of curiosity. Arlong and I have an agreement. Nami said the agreement between herself and Arlong to buy the Kokoa West village with 100 million Baileys. From their various actions in the village, I don't think he will abide by this agreement, and he may even interfere with you in order to prevent you from achieving this goal. Chloe said the somewhat cruel inference lightly. No, he will definitely abide by it. Although Nami's tone was full of determination, her eyes were a bit evasive. In fact, she herself did not believe that Arlong would abide by this agreement, but the weak have no choice, right? By the way, how many oranges do you need? Let's pick them together, and then you should leave this island quickly. It will be bad if Arlong and others find out. Nami raised her head and looked at Luo Te. Looking at this girl with kind eyes, Luo Te felt as if a part of his heart was burned, and he couldn't help but want to protect her. Thinking that the little shoulders of this girl in front of him actually carried the life and death of this village. I don't know how she survived all these years. If the fishmen didn't regard themselves as a superior race and looked down on humans, I don't know what more excessive things Arlong would do to such a delicate girl. Feeling the pity in Luo Te's eyes, Nami quickly lowered her head and looked away. Only a weak voice came. Let's go pick oranges quickly. Luo Te looked at Nokigo on the side and asked seriously. Aren't you afraid that we will run away after picking oranges? We are pirates? Hearing this, Nokigo was stunned for a moment. Why didn't she think of this possibility, but what can she do? Nami looked up at the others and said, I believe you won't do that. Luo Te looked at Nami in front of him and couldn't help complaining in his heart. Fool, how can you be so naive? Let me pay the money first. He took out a black box from the system space and handed it to Nami. Nami mechanically took the box. This is 100 million Baileys. But we don't have oranges worth 100 million Baileys here. At most, they are worth 200,000 or 300,000 Baileys. For a moment, Nami's hand trembled as she held the box. I just ate the oranges you planted. They are the most delicious oranges I have ever eaten. In some islands, 10 million Baileys can only buy 10 kilograms of oranges of this quality. As he said that, Luo Te pushed the box into Nami's arms again. This. Luo Te bent down and stretched out his right hand to rub Nami's head. Go to Arlong first and buy your village back. That way, you can pick oranges for us with peace of mind, right? Hearing this, Zoro, Linger and Klo smiled. Luo Te, Nami sniffed. She could feel Luo Te's kindness. At first, she thought Luo Te helped her because he coveted the bodies of her two sisters. But when she met Luo Te's clear eyes, she didn't see the aggressive gazes like other men. Go, we'll wait for you here. She didn't know why Luo Te helped her, but she could only ask Luo Te for the reason after this incident. Looking at the thin back, Luo Te's heart ached for no reason. Chapter 26. Arlong watching Nami walk towards Arlong Park, Nokigo's face was full of worry. She knew that Arlong was a very scary pirate, and she was a little worried about Nami's personal safety. Luo Te said at the right time, if you are worried about Nami, just go and take a look. Nokigo looked at Luo Te and the others hesitantly. Don't worry, we can pick it ourselves here. Klo stretched out his hand and picked an orange from the tree and said so. Nokigo nodded fiercely to everyone and then followed the direction where Nami left. Luo Te stood up straight and pounded the muscles on his waist. Let's go and take a look. After that, he walked slowly into the distance. Linger and the other two looked at each other and smiled and followed. Along the way, Luo Te's steps were still slow, not as anxious as imagined. But the super hard net has covered the entire island, and it focuses on tracking the electromagnetic waves of Nami and the others. If there is any accident, he can appear in front of Nami with an electromagnetic teleportation. Arlong Park. Oh, look who's back, isn't this Nami, the navigator of our Arlong pirates? A fishman sitting on the main seat said jokingly. This man has a distinctive appearance, with blue skin, fins on his back, long and thick black hair, sharp teeth, and a jagged nose that is even more eye-catching. It is the leader of Arlong Park, Fishman Arlong. Hearing Arlong's teasing tone, Nami's eyes flashed with self-mockery, and soon she returned to her smile. She slowly walked towards Arlong with a box. Arlong, is our previous agreement still valid? Arlong grinned, revealing a puzzled expression. What agreement? Holding back the emotion that was about to burst out, Nami tried to make her tone seem calm. If I save 100 million Baileys, I can buy the Cocoa West village. Arlong touched his head with his left hand full of jade, frowning slightly. Let me think about it. It seems to be true. Then he looked up at Nami with a hint of sarcasm in his eyes. You won't tell me that you really saved 100 million Baileys? Nami didn't speak, but pressed his hand on the lock of the box. With a click, the box was opened and the lid flipped down. The fish people looked into the box, which was full of Baileys, and they all opened their mouths wide. This is 100 million Baileys. I give it to you. The Cocoa West village belongs to me. From now on, you must not do anything to the Cocoa West village, and don't enter the Cocoa West village again. After that, Nami slowly put the box full of Baileys on the ground. Arlong stared at Nami with a scrutinizing look. He didn't expect Nami to be able to save up 100 million berries. Ha 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 ha, Nami, are there really 100 million berries in here? Then he nodded to a fishman beside him. The fishman minion walked to the box full of Bailey and started counting the money. Nami stood quietly by and did not stop him. She counted it and found that there were exactly 100 million Baileys in it, so she was not worried. After a long time, the fishman minion finished counting and nodded to Arlong. Brother Arlong, there are indeed 100 million Baileys in it. Arlong was a little surprised and then applauded. Bring it here. The fishman minion nodded and closed the box and brought it to Arlong. Unexpectedly, Arlong slipped the box to the ground, and the Baileys inside were scattered all over the ground, and even a few stacks of Baileys fell into the sea. Seeing this, Arlong spread his hands. Oh, Nami, it seems that there are number 100 million Baileys in the box now. Nami bit her lip and plunged into the sea, fishing for the Baileys scattered on the sea surface. She picked up the Baileys scattered on the ground and put them into the box one by one. Nami looked at Arlong, who was sitting quietly in his seat, and suppressed her anger and said, Arlong, now here are 100 million Baileys. Hurry up and return the Cocoa West village to me. Arlong turned his head and said nonchalantly, Sorry, Nami, I don't want wet Baileys. So you have to collect them again. How can wet Baileys not be money? Nami's tone was a little angry. Arlong spread his hands and said, Wet Baileys are the easiest to tear, so they are no longer called money. Arlong you. Before Nami could finish her words, Arlong walked up and grabbed Nami's neck and lifted her up. Nami, the money is for me. If I say it's not, then it's not, so you'd better draw the sea chart for me honestly. Nami struggled to pry Arlong's fingers apart with her hands, but how could a girl's strength be comparable to that of an adult male, let alone a fishman? Arlong, did you not intend to sell the village of Cocoa West to me from the beginning? What? I really want to sell the village to you, but you really didn't collect 100 million Baileys. Arlong stretched out his left little finger and turned his ear carelessly. Arlong. Nami's eyes were filled with tears. She knew that Arlong would not let her go easily, but she had no choice because she could only obey Arlong's arrangements. The funny thing is that the weak cannot choose freedom, and even death. Arlong, what did you do to Nami? Put Nami down quickly. Nokigo appeared in Arlong Park with a long stick. Nami's neck was pinched by Arlong and he couldn't turn around, but he knew it was his sister Nokigo. Nami's somewhat anxious voice sounded. Nokigo, hurry up. Arlong looked at it, his eyes full of murderous intent. In this village, except for Nami's navigation skills, everyone else was a weed in front of him and could deprive him of his life at any time. Hit the water. Don't. Nami's voice hadn't come out yet. A drop of water shot out from Arlong's left hand, and appeared between Nokigo's eyebrows in the blink of an eye like a bullet. It was about to penetrate Nokigo's head, but it seemed to have been paused and stopped in the air. The drop of water was only 2 centimeters away from Nokigo's forehead. The blood-splattering scene that Arlong expected did not appear. Huh? What's going on? Then Nami also flew out of her control and flew towards the door as if she was out of control. Hey, comrade, you bye-bye, isn't it not good to treat two delicate beauties like this? Chapter 27. Nami's request. Seeing this strange scene, the fish people in Arlong Park looked towards the door. 4 figures appeared at the door, and Nami was held in Luo Te's arms. Who are you? Lowly human. Arlong saw that the woman he was about to kill was saved, and Nami was also free. He was very angry about the whole fish. Me? I should be considered a chef. Luo Te took out a coat from the system space and put it on Nami and spoke slowly. Chef? There is no chef here, lowly human. Arlong angrily shot countless water strikes at Luo Te again. Luo Te did not look up, but casually opened an electromagnetic barrier in front of him, blocking all the attacks. Everyone who knows me knows that I am best at cooking fish. Luo Te raised his head and grinned. But this smile was full of contempt in Arlong's eyes. Forget it, I'll deal with you later. Luo Te raised his hand, and an invisible electromagnetic barrier enveloped the entire Arlong Park, preventing the fishmen inside from coming out, and even preventing sounds and attacks from being heard. Nami looked up and saw Luo Te. Luo Te, you shouldn't have come here. Luo Te touched Nami's wet hair, and then slowly put her on the ground. Don't worry, these beasts are not a threat to us. Feeling the warmth coming from her head, Nami slowly raised her head, and her big eyes were like a clear spring, which made people pity her. At this moment, Luo Te was a little stunned and almost fell into this clear spring. Is there anything I can help with? Nami, we actually know all the efforts you have made for this village over the years. We don't have the ability to let you bear so much alone. A middle-aged male voice sounded. Nami turned her head and looked behind Luo Te, only to see that all the villagers had come, holding weapons in their hands. It seemed that they wanted to fight the Arlong pirates to the death. The leader was a middle-aged man with wounds and stitches all over his face, wearing a village police uniform. Aegean-san, Milisan. You should leave quickly, this is not something you can participate in. Nami shouted anxiously, fearing that this group of villagers would do something stupid. Then all her years of compromise would be in vain. Aegean rolled up his sleeves and said angrily, Nami, we can't let you bear all this alone. We can definitely defeat Arlong with more people. You. Tears fell somewhat uncontrollably. Nami looked up at Luo Te. Luo Te, help me. Luo Te smiled and nodded to Nami, saying in a gentle tone, leave it to us. Then he looked back at the villagers and said, you just stay outside to scout for us. Let us take care of the fishmen inside. Aegean looked up and down at Luo Te and the others, and couldn't help but said, don't talk big, Brad, you are too young, leave this kind of thing to us. Hearing this, Luo Te felt warm in his heart, and then his pupils turned red and released Conqueror slightly. All the villagers were shocked by this momentum and sat on the ground. Luo Te, you. Nami was a little confused. She knew that this was Luo Te's method, and she didn't know why Luo Te would attack the villagers. Don't worry, they're fine. I'm just afraid they'll do something stupid. Luo Te turned to Zoro and the other two and said, there's work to do, brothers. Linger couldn't wait to turn into a ball of fire, and Klo turned into a rock. Zoro took silence and flowing light in his hands. Luo Te raised his hand to remove the electromagnetic barrier and walked slowly towards Arlong. Arlong was already scared at this time, because no matter how he attacked just now, it was like there was a transparent barrier in front of him, which made him unable to break through. Combined with the scene where he just saw his water strike being frozen in the air, he had guessed that it must be the black-haired man in front of him who did something. What? Where did the momentum just now go? Arlong. Luo Te walked in front of Arlong. Lowly humans, lowly races, only the fishmen are the gods of this world. Arlong gritted his teeth. On the other side, Zoro naturally faced Octopus Zauba, but this duel did not have the anxious scene of the previous life. Zoro put the 2 supreme big swords back into the scabbard, and just stood quietly in front of Octopus Zauba. Seeing Zoro's actions, Zauba was curious and angry. Green-haired boy, aren't you a swordsman? Are you going to fight me with your bare hands? I really want to try whether takoyaki is delicious. Octopus Zalba was a little proud when he heard this. Takoyaki? Of course, the taste of octopus is the best in the world. Damn, what did you say? Enjoy the rest of your time, because when I take action, you can only go to hell to repent. Zoro grinned, full of bloodthirstiness. Then die, green-haired boy. Octopus Zalba instantly rolled the 6 knives in his hand into an airtight net and killed Zoro. Gradually, Zoro's body has already had many bloodstains. What? I thought you were so powerful, but it turns out that you are only powerful in words. Octopus Zalba said with his trumpet-like mouth. Zoro didn't seem to feel the injuries on his body. He pulled off the green headscarf on his arm and covered his eyes. He murmured, the next step is the time for real training. Octopus Hachi touched his forehead in a state of bewilderment, not understanding the situation, but he could think that Zoro was provoking him. You look down on me. Go to hell, green-haired brother. 6 octopus legs rushed towards Zoro with knives, obviously more serious this time. Gradually, Zoro seemed to know all his sword moves, and from the initial tiredness of dodging, he became more handy. The body also swam in it like a fish. He didn't suffer a single injury. Okay, I've had enough fun, and it's time for you to go to hell. After saying that, he held the handle of the Wado Ichimonji with his right hand, and blindfolded himself. Armament Haki draw the sword. Instantly, a sword light separated Octopus Hachi's body like a line. Zoro took off his headscarf and said to the octopus that was bleeding wildly on the ground. Thank you for helping me improve my observation Haki. Xiao Ba lay on the ground, looking at Zoro's face full of unwillingness. Damn it, are you just using me as a stepping stone? You should be glad that you can use your remaining energy in the last moments of your life. As he spoke, Zoro had already rushed into the dense crowd of fishmen with a knife. Looking at Zoro's back, Xiao Ba murmured, did we really do something wrong? Luo Te naturally saw the battlefield on Zoro's side clearly, and he would not interfere with his partner's battle. He just sensed it a little and shook his head slightly. It seems that the octopus's vitality is still very tenacious, it should not die. Chapter 28. Arlong Park Destruction. Fire Fist. Linger's right hand turned into flames and punched the fish. The group of fishmen turned into dried fish, and those who were close turned into ash. Poor Ju was roasted into dried fish before he could say anything harsh. In Linger's eyes, he just regarded this fishman with a pouting mouth as a slightly larger fish, and didn't know that Ju was one of the cadres of Arlong Park. She didn't have the playfulness of Zoro. She had accumulated a lot of anger. Now that she got Luo Te's permission, she just wanted to turn all these fishmen into dried fish. A ball of fire jumped around on the field, leaving dried fish every time it passed a place. Pung Wing Knife. Crow turned his hands into the wings of the rock, attached armament Haki to the edge of the wings, and instantly turned into 2 extremely sharp knives. Its sharpness was better than his previous claw knife, and it was more handy to wield it as a part of his body. The speed is now better than that of the spoon. This fruit is really tailor-made for him. The more he uses it, the more convenient it is. Chloe flapped his wings lightly and teleported from in front of Black Effin to behind Black Effin. The corner of Black Effin's mouth showed a mocking arc, but before he could say anything, an X-shaped wound appeared on his chest, blood spurted out, and he slowly fell to the ground. The mockery was still on his face. Chloe did not stay but teleported away. In just a moment, countless Chloe figures appeared on the field. Accompanied by the terrified screams of the fishmen, every time a figure appeared, a fishman would spurt blood and fall down. Nami outside the field was so surprised that she couldn't speak when she saw this scene. She never thought that such a young group of people would be as easy as cutting melons and vegetables when facing the terrifying fishmen. Noki Gao's eyes were also wide open. Compatriots, what did you do to my compatriots? Seeing the fishmen falling one by one on the field, Arlong's eyes were bloodshot. I wanted to rush over and kill Zoro and his men. Hey, what do you think when you see your compatriots end up like this? When you slaughtered the villagers of Kokoyashi village, did you ever think that they were also compatriots? Luo Te's voice sounded faintly. Bah. Our fishmen are the supreme race, and you humans are just an inferior race that can't even breathe in water. We superior races have the power of life and death. Killing a few humans is what we should do. Arlong looked at Luo Te with contempt. That look was as if he was looking at an animal. Luo Te originally wanted to influence this fish, but it seemed that the hatred deeply rooted in his heart could not be resolved by a few simple words. Moreover, he had killed so many people and done so many bad things, so he naturally had no intention of letting Arlong go. Electromagnetic Sky Attraction. Luo Te stretched out his hand to Arlong, sucked Arlong into his hand, and strangled Arlong's neck. Have you ever thought that in my eyes, you are just a group of fish? Arlong hit Luo Te's arm with his hand, but it was in vain. Damn it. Let me go, you lowly human. It is natural for people to eat fish, isn't it? Low-level creatures without even the most basic humanity are not qualified to live in this world. Damn it. It's just a lowly human, don't preach to higher species. Arlong did not realize his mistake and was still stubborn. Looking at the hideous Arlong, Luo Te shook his head slightly. It seems that he and Hody are both the embodiment of hatred, and never face up to their mistakes. It's really hopeless. I didn't intend to let you go. After saying that, Luo Te directly broke Arlong's neck and threw it aside like trash. Then a red light flashed in his eyes, and a transcendent momentum swept the whole scene, and all the fishmen fell to the ground with foam at the mouth. This time, he released all the Haki, and these weak fishmen could not resist at all, so they went directly to see their grandmother. Nami, today, I will help you destroy Arlong Park, the place that trapped you, the place that carried many of your nightmares, and the place that only deprived and killed the villagers. You no longer need to bear the responsibility of saving the village. No one in this world will bully you anymore. Arlong Park is a thing of the past. Luo Te's voice full of Haki resounded throughout the island, and in an instant, all the villagers dropped their weapons and cried happily. After so many years, the days of living under the oppression of Arlong can finally come to an end. Those villagers who died tragically because of Arlong can finally close their eyes in peace. Nami could no longer bear it and rushed to Luo Te's arms and hugged Luo Te's waist tightly. Luo Te, thank you, thank you. The tears soaked Luo Te's clothes, warm, and it was the release of a girl's emotions that had been suppressed for many years. Luo Te stroked Nami's back with his right hand and whispered, "It's over, everything is over. There will be no Arlong anymore." Yeah. Nami's voice was a little choked. In her mind, she flashed the images of herself being transferred to multiple pirate ships, merchant ships, and wealthy families for so many years because of an agreement that did not exist at all. However, these images were directly crushed by a big hand, and the owner of the big hand was Luo Te. After a long time, Nami raised her head and looked at Luo Te with red eyes. "I'm sorry. I got your clothes dirty." "It's okay. Let's go back to the village, yeah." In order to celebrate the crushing of Arlong, the mountain that pressed on the village of Kokoa West, the villagers organized a huge banquet that lasted for 3 days and 3 nights. At the banquet, the village policeman Aegean told the villagers about the bravery of Luo Te and his men over and over again, as if he was tireless. Zoro was drinking with the villagers. Chloe was sitting on the eaves drinking alone. Linger joined the chefs and learned how to make the signature dishes of Kokoa West Village. "Nami, are you willing to come with me?" Luo Te's voice fell into the ears of the little girl, making her blush. The little girl hesitated and said, "Well, I'm not yet an adult." Nokigo, who was standing by, quickly protected her sister in her arms, with a vigilant look on her face. "Lord Luo Te, although you are our savior, you can't do this. Nami is still young." Then she lowered her head and said a little shyly, "If it really doesn't work, I can do it too." Hearing the two women's words, Luo Te blushed. "I think you've got it wrong. I don't mean that. It's just that my ship is still short of a navigator." "Do you want Nami to follow you to be a pirate?" Hearing Luo Te asking Nami to be a pirate, Nokigo's eyes flashed with a hint of coldness. Luo Te knew that Nijigo hated pirates. Their adoptive mother died at the hands of pirates, and many villagers also died at the hands of pirates. Saving them alone could not convince them to completely believe in Luo Te and his gang. "Although I am a pirate, I may not be the same as the pirates you imagine. What I yearn for is the free adventure on the sea, without constraints and without fear." Luo Te put his hands behind his head and leaned back in the chair. "Also, I am a little uncomfortable with this world. Let's see if I can change it." Chapter 29, Navigator Nami. "I can sleep on your bed. Ship. But I have to take care of the treasure on the ship." The moment she finished speaking, Nami's eyes turned into Bailey. Luo Te looked at Nami with some amusement. Such words coming from Nami's mouth were completely in line with her personality. He nodded happily. "Okay, from now on, you will be the navigator and financial manager of our pirate group." "Great." Nami jumped up happily. Nokiko on the side looked at his sister in surprise. "Hey, Nami, are you sure? Although Luo Te may be a good person, pirates are always full of dangers. If you are not careful, you will be buried in the sea." Now that life has finally stabilized, Nokiko really doesn't want his sister to do such a dangerous thing. In the world of pirates, there are other pirate groups fighting in front, and there are pursuers, marine and bounty hunters behind. It is not an exaggeration to say that she sleeps with a blade as a pillow every day. After listening to Nokigo's words, Nami did not have the slightest intention of retreating. Instead, he spoke with a firm face. "Nokigo, you also know that my dream is to draw the sea charts of the world. I believe that I can achieve this dream with Luo Te and others." But Nokigo wanted to say something. Nami spoke again. "Okay, Nokigo, I know what you were worried about. I believe Luo Te will protect me." After that, Nami looked at Luo Te. He felt the same sense of security from Luo Te as he did from Bellamel. Luo Te nodded and assured. "Of course, as long as I am in the world, no one can hurt my partners. Besides, my strength is already among the best in the world." "See, I said Luo Te would protect me." Nami looked at Nokigo with a smile on his face. Seeing that his sister was determined to go, Nokiko could only nod helplessly and responded, "Nami, I respect your decision. As long as you are happy, you can go anywhere and do anything." But there was still one sentence in his heart that he didn't say. "I hope you didn't choose to be a pirate with Luo Te just because he is handsome." "Nami, have you decided?" A male voice appeared, and everyone looked and found that it was the village policeman Aegean. Nami nodded to Aegean. "Aegean-san, I have decided to go to sea with Luo Te as a pirate." Aegean stared at Nami seriously for a long time. Ha 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 ha, since you have made a decision, just do it, but remember not to forget to smile. After listening to Aegean's words, Nami was moved. She knew that Aegean had always treated her two sisters as his own children, and Aegean was also the best elder to her besides Bellamel. And Nami was undoubtedly very happy to get Aegean's support. Hey, Luo Te, come and drink, these people can't drink much, it's boring. At this time, Zoro's voice sounded in the distance. Luo Te looked in the direction of the voice and saw Zoro sitting on a big log with a huge wineglass in his hand, and all around him were villagers who were already drunk and unconscious. No wonder Zoro was so distressed. Luo Te waved to Zoro and said, I'm coming, I'm coming. Luo Te greeted the three people and walked towards Zoro. He knew that they were about to leave, and the three people must have a lot to say, so he might as well take this opportunity to leave time for the three people. Looking at Luo Te's back as he left, Aegean nodded. He is a very reliable man. You should not be treated badly if you follow him. But there are bound to be many women around such a man. Aegean's voice reached Nami's ears, and Nami blushed instantly. Aegean, what nonsense are you talking about? I am going to be a navigator on their ship, not the captain's wife. Okay, no matter what happens in the future, don't wrong yourself, okay. Aegean and the others were still very reluctant to let Nami leave. The three chatted until late at night, reminiscing about the past and saying a lot. When Luo Te came back, Aegean was the only one left. Luo Te handed the bottle of wine in his hand to Jien. Jien-san, did Nami and the others go to rest? Jien took the bottle of wine but did not open it. Instead, he said to Luo Te seriously, boy, if you make Nami lose her smile, I will hunt you down wherever you go. Listening to the words that should have been said to Luffy, Luo Te nodded solemnly. Of course, no one can take away my friend's smile. Jien stared at Luo Te's face and said, I hope you can keep your word. By the way, Nami should be there, you can go and have a look. Luo Te knew where Jien was talking about. There was no other place except the tomb of his adoptive mother, Belmel. Luo Te activated his observation Haki and saw Nami alone on the edge of the cliff. A teleportation disappeared in front of Aegean. Looking at the place where Luo Te just stood, Aegean's pupils trembled. It seems that this Luo Te is really hidden. I wonder if Nami should follow him. On the hillside, next to the tomb of Bellamel, Luo Te, who had just teleported, did not choose to disturb Nami immediately, but stood far behind. He saw Nami talking and laughing at the tombstone there, and thought that she should be telling Bellamel everything that happened today. After a while, Luo Te slowly walked behind Nami and said, Nami, why are you here alone? Nami turned around. Luo Te, why are you here? Luo Te walked to Nami and sat down. I haven't seen you for a long time. I was afraid that you were in danger, so I came to see you. Nami felt a little warm in her heart. Luo Te, it's okay, it's safe here. This is the tomb of my adoptive mother Bellamel. Come and talk to her before leaving. Luo Te nodded to show his understanding. Looking at Luo Te, Nami gently leaned her head on Luo Te's shoulder. Luo Te, Belmel. Nami leaned on Luo Te's shoulder and slowly told Belmel's goodness, and her voice gradually became smaller and smaller. Luo Te tilted his head to look over, and the girl fell asleep directly. Nami, so you are really here? Just then, Nokigo's voice sounded behind him. When Nokigo came closer, he saw Nami leaning on Luo Te's shoulder and fell asleep. Nokigo, you are here. Nami just fell asleep, please take her back. The next morning, at the south blue shore of Koko West Village, many villagers had gathered to see Luo Te and his party off. Hey, are you really going to set sail? Nami hasn't boarded the ship yet. Linger's voice was a little worried, fearing that Nami was just saying this casually and didn't really intend to join their pirate group. Chloe said at this time, it doesn't matter, since Nami asked us to sail now, I will definitely get on board before the ship leaves. Luo Te nodded and controlled the skybreaker to slowly sail away from the shore. In fact, Luo Te's super heart net has been covering the entire island. He saw Nami running towards the shore. When they were about to reach the shore, the other three people also felt Nami's approach. Nami shuttled through the crowd and jumped onto the skybreaker. Nami opened his t-shirt and a bunch of wallets fell to the ground. He turned around and showed a smug smile to the villagers. Thank you, damn, my wallet, damn little thief. Give me back my money, Nami, you must be happy. Among the crowd, Aegean stared at Luo Te. Boy, remember our agreement. Luo Te nodded and smiled at Aegean. Ding, congratulations to the host for completing the task of finding a partner +1, and get the following rewards. 1 box of Weilong spicy strips, 1 box of Wahaha pure water, 1 box of Liliangtu instant noodles, and 1000 senzu beans. Close black lens bracket. What the hell are these rewards? What the hell is Liliangtu? Looking at Nami holding a Bailey on the deck, Luo Te came to Chloe and said, by the way, there's a rat here that you need to deal with. Chloe turned into a rock and disappeared on the deck. Chapter 30 Arrival at Loguetown. Loguetown was unusually busy at noon. There were all kinds of shops on both sides of the street, and all kinds of hawking sounds were heard. In front of the door was a lively porch with a constant flow of people. As the town closest to the Grand Line entrance in East Blue, it almost gathered people from all islands. There were pirates, bounty hunters, and marines. There was a tall archway at the entrance of Loguetown. The years had carved Madara's marks on the wooden archway, as if it would collapse in the next moment. And there was an extra sign in the middle of the archway, which read, Loguetown. Along the archway was a street about 15 meters wide and paved with stone slabs. At the end of the long street was a huge square. At this moment, there were 5 people standing under the archway, 3 men and 2 women. They were Luo Te and his group who passed by here to resupply. Linger looked at the bustling streets in front of him, his face full of excitement, and stretched out his hand to hold Nami's arm and shook it. Nami, there seem to be a lot of nice clothes here, let's go shopping. Nami was also very excited at this moment. She passed many islands and towns when she came out of Kokoa West Village, but few were as prosperous as the one in front of her. She turned around and nodded to Luo Te and pulled Linger forward. Seeing the 2 people going away, Luo Te couldn't help but shout, "Hey, Nami." Hearing Luo Te's shout, Nami turned back with a puzzled look. "What? Do you want to join us?" Luo Te shook his head. "There are many marines on this island. Although they haven't seen your faces, they may have known that you are Luo Te's gang. So be careful." Linger raised his pink fist and said disdainfully, "What are you afraid of? We won't lose." Chloe said at this time, "The captain is not afraid of them, but it can save trouble and enter the Grand Line earlier." Linger made a face at Chloe and said, I know, Chloe, uncle." Ha ha ha, Zoro couldn't help laughing. "Chloe, I told you to be more lively. Don't pretend to be deep every day." Luo Te was also holding back his laughter. Chloe's face was very calm. This is his personality. He is unusually calm when encountering things, plus that shiny big back hair. Usually on the ship, there are 3 points in a straight line between the training room, the restaurant and the lounge. With a rather old-fashioned style, Linger and Nami jokingly called him, Uncle. After walking a few steps, Nami turned back and asked, "By the way, do you want money?" When it came to money, Luo Te and the other 2 looked a little unnatural. After Nami got on board, Luo Te also fulfilled his promise and made a huge safe. He put all his wealth in it, and naturally gave the key to Nami. So now the 3 of them are more clean-handed than their faces. Zoro scratched his head a little embarrassedly and said, "I want some money to buy a scabbard." The supreme sword rewarded by the system did not come with a scabbard. He believed that no one in East Blue could recognize the sword. But they were about to enter the Grand Line, where there would definitely be people who could recognize the 2 swords. To be on the safe side, he still planned to make a scabbard on the street. Nami turned around and looked at Zoro. "Oh, how much do you want?" 50,000 Baileys. Nami's expression changed immediately, and she took out an abacus from behind and started to calculate. "I'll lend you 50,000 Baileys, with an interest rate of 60%. Let me see, if you pay it back in a year, it will be 1 million Baileys." Zoro's eyes widened. "How did you calculate this? This interest rate is too high. And at this interest rate, it won't reach 1 million in a year." Nami had a sinister smile on her lips and said, "Tell me if you want to borrow it." Looking at the profiteer in front of him, he gritted his teeth and said, "I'll lend it to you." Nami immediately took out the IOU she had prepared in advance and handed it to Zoro. Turning to look at Chloe. "Uncle, you don't have any hairspray left, right?" Looking at the 2 women who had gone far away, Zoro complained to Luo Te. "Luo Te, handing over the financial power to Nami is definitely the biggest failure." Crow also nodded rarely. He was just extorted 200,000 Baileys by Nami. Luo Te shook his head helplessly. As a captain, he had an ambiguous relationship with Nami, so he was not spared from being extorted 500,000 Baileys. "Let's go, I'm going to the street." After that, Luo Te put on Kizaru's sunglasses and walked towards the square. He walked slowly forward in the crowd all the way. When Luo Te arrived at the square, there were not many people around. In the center of the square stood a high platform made of steel, which had been rusted after years of rain erosion. Madara. Luo Te stood under the execution platform and exclaimed, "Is this the platform where Roger the Pirate was executed? It's really spectacular." Luo Te recalled the comics he had read in his previous life. Many fans said that it was not Roger the Pirate who opened the Age of Discovery, but the passerby who asked, "Pirate, where did you hide the treasure?" He was a little amused but felt it was very reasonable. Luo Te shook his head in boredom. "Let's see what others are doing." Before Luo Te could use the observation Haki, a noisy sound came from the street in the north. Luo Te turned around and walked towards that place. As soon as he walked in, he saw Zoro surrounded by a group of people. Zoro looked at the situation in front of him with a headache. "I was very careful, but I didn't expect to be seen by others." Zoro originally wanted to find a blacksmith shop on the street. He asked for directions many times along the way, but he still got lost and walked directly to a meeting of a group of bounty hunters. And the content of their meeting was to discuss everyone to go to the sea to find Luo Te's group together. "Excuse me, is this a blacksmith shop?" Zoro looked around and shook his head again. "It doesn't look like it." The iconic 3 knives and green algae head were instantly recognized by the group of bounty hunters. The bounty of 15 million appeared in the conference room, and the bounty hunters were all stunned. The bounty hunters took action without thinking, and Zoro hurried to the street, but he was surrounded by bounty hunters. Luo Te felt a headache. I say, Zoro, your ability to cause trouble is really the same as Luffy's. Hearing this familiar voice, Zoro looked up and saw Luo Te wearing sunglasses. You guy, why don't you give me a pair of sunglasses? Luo Te rolled his eyes and said, I only have a pair of sunglasses. The bounty hunters around looked at Zoro and then at Luo Te. Are there any accomplices? But you can't escape today, Roronoa Zoro? Do you want my help? This little thing doesn't need help from others. I can easily solve it myself. Zoro said while pulling out his Wado Ichimonji. Luo Te nodded and prepared to watch the show, but a bounty hunter came at Luo Te with a knife. You are also Zoro's accomplice, right? Although there is no bounty, you should still die. Luo Te shook his head. No matter when, there will always be some people who can't see the current situation clearly. That's it. Zoro put the Wado Ichimonji back into the sheath with a bored look on his face. He thought these people could give him a little pressure, but they didn't. After mastering Haki, Zoro's strength is no longer something that East Blue can challenge. Wait, can you let me see your knife? A girl's voice sounded from behind Zoro. Chapter 31. Smoker. In fact, Luo Te had already discovered this woman, but he didn't care. Since he had already caused a commotion, there was no need to be timid. Zoro turned around slowly and was about to refuse, but the words turned into, Who are you? Why do you look so much like her? The girl was 15 or 16 years old, with black hair, wearing a pair of red-framed myopic glasses, and holding a knife in her hand. This girl was naturally Smoker's deputy, Tashigi. Tashigi seemed not to hear Zoro's words, and reached out to touch the Wado Ichimonji on Zoro's waist. Hey, don't think you can touch my knife just because you look like her. Zoro stepped aside and put his hands on the 3 knives, his face full of vigilance. I just saw the pattern, curvature, and length of the knife. Is it Wado Ichimonji? Tashigi's eyes were full of fanaticism. What's wrong with you, woman? This is my knife, what does it have to do with you? Zoro stared at Tashigi with a blush. If other women offended him like this, he would have raised his knife and chopped them off, but Zoro really couldn't do anything about this face. Tashigi held the Zan Shigur in her left hand and stretched her right hand in front of Zoro. Please show me this knife. My dream is to collect famous swords in the world. What does your collection of famous swords have to do with me? This is my sword. Seeing Tashigi's face of sword obsession, Zoro hurriedly held the Wado Ichimonji tightly. Let's go quickly. This woman is sick. Zoro turned around and didn't want to entangle with this woman anymore. Seeing that Zoro had 3 knives hanging around her waist and 3 water drop earrings hanging on her ears, Tashigi then reacted. Then, you are Roronoa Zoro? Zoro really didn't want to face this woman again, but he had no choice but to turn around and nod. I will never allow a bad guy like you to take the knife away. I want to take this famous sword back. Hearing Tashigi say this, Zoro instantly got angry. It seems that he can't leave without teaching this woman a lesson. If you have the ability, come and try it. As expected, Tashigi was defeated by Zoro after 2 moves. This was the result of Zoro's release of the sea, otherwise Tashigi could be sent to see Tai Nai with 1 move. Looking at the Zan Shi Yu inserted next to his head and the 2 people leaving, Tashigi shouted at Zoro's back with unwillingness in his eyes. Why don't you just kill me? Just because I am a woman? Zoro turned around and covered his eyes. Don't say such things with this face. At this time, Luo Te patted Zoro on the shoulder. Someone is coming. Zoro also sensed it, and sure enough, a 3-wheeled motorcycle drove towards this side from the end of the street. When the motorcycle got closer, he could see the person on it clearly. The man had white hair and 2 cigars in his mouth. The marine cloak was wide open, revealing his strong chest and abdominal muscles. He carried a 10-handed on his back. Who else could it be if not Smoker? Smoker got off the motorcycle and walked to Tashigi to help her up. Miss, can you still stand up? Tashigi said a little embarrassedly. I'm sorry, Smoker-san, I'm useless. Smoker shook his head. Don't blame you, the enemy this time is very unusual. Then he looked up at Luo Te. Right, Luo Te. Tashigi heard Smoker's words clearly and looked over in surprise. What? You are Luo Te. Luo Te with a bounty of 200 million. Luo Te couldn't pretend anymore, so he could only nod and take off his sunglasses. As expected of Smoker, you can recognize me. Smoker didn't continue the topic, but said, What are you doing here, Luo Te? Luo Te looked at Smoker and shook his head in his heart. A good Logia devil fruit was wasted like this. Without the Haki setting, he was invincible when he could only rely on his abilities to restrain each other. After adding the Haki setting, he was so weak that he became a character that even the dogs of the 4 emperors could step on in the new world. Luo Te said speechlessly. Of course we are going to Grand Line, otherwise why are we here? Smoker said with a look of understanding. Sure enough, your target is not just East Blue. Then his expression changed and he said sternly, but no matter you are Luo Te or any other Te, whether the bounty is 10 million or 200 million, this is my territory, and I will never allow any pirate to pass through. He took a deep puff of cigar, pulled out 10 fingers from behind and pointed at Luo Te and the other person. However, at this time, a cloud fell from the sky and finally turned into an orange-haired girl. Luo Te, how about leaving this marine to me? Luo Te looked at Nami, then shook his head and said, the other side is Logia devil fruit. Nami, you haven't learned Haki yet, so you can't deal with him yet. A rock appeared in the field as if it was teleporting. Before it landed, the rock's beak opened and closed. Luo Te, we must solve it quickly. I saw a warship on the sea. It seems to be that old man Garp. I have asked Linger to drive the boat. The rock turned into Klo and looked at the scene in front of him, then turned his head and looked at Luo Te with some worry. Hearing the news brought back by Klo, Luo Te frowned. Garp. He is really a tricky guy. I just don't know how much gap there is between him and me at present. Zoro, Nami, let's go back to the ship first, and leave this to Klo. After saying that, he took the two of them and flew towards the skybreaker without waiting for the two to refuse. Smoker's forehead was bulging with blue veins, who allowed you to leave without permission. White Snake. After shouting, he held the 10 hands in his right hand and turned into a white smoke to attack Luo Te and the others. Just as he made a move, he was stepped on by Klo. Mr. Marine, you'd better stay in Loguetown. Klo pushed his glasses. Seeing that his right hand, which had already been transformed into an element, was easily stepped on by Klo, Smoker's forehead was covered with cold sweat, and he said in disbelief. Bah. Haki? How could anyone in East Blue know Haki? There are still many things you don't know. How can I explain them to you one by one? Klo shook his head and looked into the distance, which was the direction Luo Te left. He didn't know how strong Garp was, but looking at the expression of his captain, he knew that it would be a tough battle if they encountered Garp. It seemed that he had to quickly deal with the smoking marine captain in front of him. Seeing the contempt in Klo's eyes, Smoker was extremely angry. What if I know Haki? First I'm the marine captain who protects this island. White Vine. The two arms turned into smoke and wrapped around Klo. Klo pushed his eyes calmly, and his right hand turned into wings. Armament Haki hardening. Pung Wing Blade. The wings were coated with a layer of black, and then the legs slightly bent, and appeared behind Smoker at a speed that was almost teleporting. So fast, before Smoker could finish his exclamation, a huge wound from the left shoulder to the right abdomen appeared and began to spurt blood. Then he slowly fell to the ground. Smoker-san. Tashigi said in disbelief. In his eyes, Smoker, who was almost invincible, was killed in seconds. The captain asked me to bring you a message. Don't think that you can do whatever you want just because you are a Logia devil fruit. Go back to your teacher Zephyr and learn Haki. 2 years later, a pirate with an extremely powerful background and strength that cannot be underestimated will pass by here. And we are not the kind of pirates you think, you will find out later. I don't know why the captain is so optimistic about you. After saying that, Klo turned into a big rock and disappeared on the spot. Wait. Wait. Cough cough cough. Smoker struggled to stand up, but Chloe's cut was just right, not killing him but making him incapable of moving. In the end, he failed to stand up. Captain Smoker. Smoker-san, they're here. At this time, his subordinates also rushed over here, but the enemy had long disappeared. Quickly bring me a Den Den Mushi, I need to call headquarters. Chapter 32. Marine Hero Garp on the Skybreaker. A big rock suddenly appeared on the deck. Are you here? I thought you were going to play for a while. The rock said, I never do unnecessary things. I don't know why you want to keep that marine alive? Luo Te recalled the plot of his previous life. Although Smoker gave people the feeling of being both inexperienced and playful, he admired the character of not flattering his superiors, not bullying the weak and fearing the strong, and putting civilians first. He might ask Smoker for help in the future. He said slowly, not all Marines are Celestial Dragon's puppets. He is one of the few Marines that I admire. I hope you will listen to what I say this time. Klo looked at the sea with a worried look. Luo Te, why don't you just fly away? If you go this way, you will definitely meet Garp. Thinking of Garp, Luo Te's eyes were full of fighting spirit, because he was one of the strongest people in the world, and he didn't have the fruit. If he could fight him, he would definitely gain a lot. I want to see if the marine hero is as strong as the legend says. Here we go. A warship appeared in Luo Te's super hardnet. He didn't avoid it deliberately. He wanted to see how far he was from the world's top. Nami looked at the warship on the opposite side with some concern. It was the first time she had seen such a large warship. She asked, Luo Te, do you want to go over? Ding. Trigger options. A. Fight with the hero Garp and leave successfully. Rewards. Advanced Conquerors 1. Top Physique 1. Limited Edition Garp Dog Head Cap 1. Senzu 1000. Skybreaker upgraded to Advanced. System Space 50*50. B. Fight with the hero Garp and request to join Marine. Rewards. Marine Rear Admiral rank, never damage Marine Cloak 1. C. Escape quickly. Reward. Escape King, title. Of course I choose a, Luo Te said without thinking. Who do you think I am? Pull the ship over. It didn't take long for the two ships to meet. At this time, Luo Te stood at the bow and looked at Garp at the bow of the opposite ship. Garp thought carefully, this face seemed to have been seen somewhere, and then he looked up at the flag on the opposite side. It looked like a skull, but the two crossed ones were not bones, but a symbol composed of a magnet and a lightning. A new pirate? Garp poured the senbei in his hand into his mouth. He rolled up his sleeves and said to the soldier beside him, "Bring me 500 shells." At this time, the soldier whispered in Garp's ear, "Vice Admiral Garp, this is the pirate Luo Te." Garp's eyes lit up. He said why this face looked so familiar. It turned out to be the pirate who killed celestial dragons recently. "Hey, are you Luo Te?" Luo Te nodded. "I am the pirate Luo Te who killed the celestial pig in your mouth." Feeling the momentum of the old man in front of him, Luo Te couldn't help but be surprised. This old man is really a monster. He is so strong. "Little devil, surrender quickly. I can still ask Sengoku for a favor and let you get a job in Marine." Luo Te flew directly between the two ships. He shook his head. "Let's just do it. I'm in a hurry to go to Grand Line." Garp was so angry that white air came out of his two nostrils. "You really don't want to consider it, old man Garp? I admire you very much, but I can't be a lackey of celestial dragons." Garp heard Luo Te's words and pursed his lips with some regret. "You are so stubborn. Shave." Garp, who was just at the bow, appeared directly in front of Luo Te and punched Luo Te. Luo Te raised his hand to block the blow. He felt like he was hit by a train and flew backwards for several hundred meters. Luo Te shook his arm, which was about to break. A sweet taste welled up in his throat, and he swallowed it in a hurry. He couldn't help but sigh. "So fast, it's almost the same speed as mine." Moreover, the observation Haki can't predict the future at all. It can only slightly sense the point where the fist lands. Sure enough, this old man can also see and kill. He is really a perverted old man. Garp looked at Luo Te, who was still flying in the air, and was a little surprised. "Little ghost, you are quite strong." After that, he breathed on his fist-bone collision. The black Haki was like black and red lightning wrapped around the surface of the fist, and Garp's figure also appeared in front of Luo Te like teleportation. This time Luo Te was prepared, and the two fists collided with each other. In an instant, the black brushed Haki spread out, and a shockwave spread out from the position of the two people's fists to the surroundings. The two ships were impacted and retreated to both sides. The soldiers on the dog-headed warship were stunned. "Shish. Who is this Luo Te? He can fight with Vice Admiral Garp to this extent." The Marines below only knew that Luo Te attacked the Celestial Dragon's ship, but they didn't know that he also killed Celestial Dragons and fought with Kizaru. The moment the fists collided, Luo Te felt that he was not facing a fist but a piece of steel. "Kid, you are very strong." Garp grinned, and then he added strength to his fist. Suddenly, Luo Te felt a huge force coming from Garp's fist. He gritted his teeth and continued to send Haki to his fist. After a short stalemate, he was defeated by Garp after all. He retreated dozens of meters, and his fist had swollen into a sandbag. Luo Te cursed inwardly. This old man is simply a monster. He has the top observation Haki and the top armed Haki, and he is even entangled with conquerors. Kuro and his companions looked a little worried. Feeling the momentum of the two, they couldn't intervene. They could only hope that the captain could win this battle. At this time, Chloe said, "Since Luo Te is fighting, we should also go up." After saying that, he turned into a rock and appeared on the doghead warship at a speed that was almost teleporting. However, just when Chloe was about to kill everyone, a man wearing a military cap appeared in front of Chloe. "Pirate, are you so arrogant? Dare to break into the enemy camp alone?" After saying that, he swung his sword at Chloe. Chloe quickly attached his wings to armament Haki to block it, and it was deadlocked for a moment. The man was a little shocked and couldn't help but say, "So strong? There must be no news." Chloe had no expression. He seemed to be so calm forever. He looked at the man in front of him and said, "People are always limited to the environment and news created for them by the superiors, and rarely have self-discrimination awareness." After saying that, the other wing slid towards the man. Just when the two were fighting in full swing, a cloud carrying Linger, Nami and Zoro floated onto the warship. Zoro couldn't help but say to Kuro, "You can choose your opponent first just because you are fast, right?" Zoro looked at the swordsman fighting Kuro with some envy, but he could only raise his sword and kill the Marines helplessly. Bang! The blade was blocked, and a man holding a black steel pipe appeared in front of Zoro. "Roranoa Zoro? You actually degenerate into a pirate?" Looking at the man in front of him, Zoro was secretly shocked in his heart. So strong, and he can also Haki. He immediately split the steel pipe hard to distance himself from the man, and said with a smile, Whether it's a pirate or a marine, as long as you stick to your heart, there is no distinction between good and evil." Looking at Kuro and Zoro, Nami and Linger also rushed to the marine camp. For a while, the doghead warship was in flames. Chapter 33. Conqueror's Entanglement. Luo Te looked at the situation on the warship and nodded in his heart. It's only a bad idea to work behind closed doors. Fighting is the best way to improve strength. Garp naturally noticed the situation on the warship, but he was not worried at all. Instead, he laughed and said, "Luo Te, it seems that your partners are not bad." Luo Te turned back and stared at Garp and said, "Of course." After that, he wrapped the electromagnetic force around his fist, and an electromagnetic body flashed in front of Garp and punched Garp in the face. Garp laughed and went up. Bang, the two fists collided. Bang, 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 bang. For a while, the figures of the two flashed frequently in the air. Ha, 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 Luo Te squeezed his bloody fist and grinned. You are worthy of being a marine hero. This body is simply a monster. I remember Oda said in SBS that Garp's strength will not decline due to aging, but Luo Te knew that this was only compared to Whitebeard. Garp's strength should also gradually decline over time, but the decline is not particularly obvious. Looking back at the warships that were still in flames, Luo Te pinched out several electromagnetic waves that were invisible to the naked eye and transmitted them to the ears of Kuro and the other four. Kuro, who was fighting, received Luo Te's message and repelled his opponent with a great force, and teleported to Zoro's side. Let's go, returned to the Skybreaker, and prepared to escape. Then, regardless of whether Zoro agreed or not, he took Zoro and disappeared on the warship. Linger looked at the place where the two disappeared, pursed his lips, and secretly thought that he was not gentlemanly. He turned into a ball of fire and returned to the ship. And Nami's figure became transparent, and gradually disappeared from the sight of the Marines. Nami, who returned to the Skybreaker, stretched out her hand and snapped her fingers with a snap, and suddenly a dark cloud appeared over the opposite warship. Crack. Thunders as thick as arms fell on the warship like raindrops, and for a while, there was a constant wailing on the warship. Garp used his observation Haki to sense the current situation on the warship and stopped paying attention to it. He knew that his team had the strength to deal with these methods. He stood in the air and looked at Luo Te with interest. Luo Te, kid, are you going to continue? Unlike Luo Te, Garp had almost no obvious scars on his body except for a little shortness of breath and a small wound on his fist. Even Garp had to admit that Luo Te's talent was amazing. As the battle progressed, he could clearly feel that Luo Te's boxing and Haki were getting stronger and stronger, and his actual strength was already on par with Admiral. Luo Te came back to his senses and looked at Garp and said, keep going, why not? He condensed the electromagnetic force and armament Haki on his fist, and at the same time tried to wrap Conqueror's Haki around it. Gradually, his fist was also covered with dark lightning. Garp's eyes widened when he saw this scene. Conqueror's entanglement. Why you too? Luo Te looked up at Garp and said, just now in the battle with you, I understand that Conqueror's Haki can also be entangled, right? Garp finally began to look Luo Te in the eye. You are really good. Let me see how strong your Conqueror's is. As he said that, Garp also rushed towards Luo Te with his fist wrapped in red and black lightning. Bang! The two fists did not touch each other, but there was a fist's distance between them. The black lightning and the red lightning intertwined. A powerful momentum spread out from the two people. This momentum rushed into the sky and actually broke a huge crack in the dark clouds in the sky. A rear admiral on the warship looked at the sky in surprise and said, look, the clouds are cracked. No, the sky is cracked. And the weak soldiers on the warship could not resist this momentum and fell on the deck with foam at the mouth. Klo and the other four were also shocked by this momentum and could not speak. After a stalemate for a while, Luo Te was finally defeated by Garp and was smashed into the sea. Ha ha ha. You are old, but you are still a little naive to fight me. Garp squeezed his sore fist and laughed. What should I do? The captain fell into the sea. Linger was anxious. As the only person on the ship who had never eaten devil fruit, Zoro pretended to jump into the sea, but he saw the Skybreaker slowly rise into the sky. What's going on? Why is our ship flying again? Crow said, this is Luo Te's ability, which means he is fine. Let's not move. But they didn't realize that the Skybreaker was actually being dragged by a cloud. Garp looked at Luo Te on the sea in front of him in some astonishment. What's going on? Aren't you demon fruit power? How come you are fine after falling into the sea? Luo Te was indeed smashed into the sea. If his fruit had not had no side effects, he would have really been in trouble. As soon as he surfaced, he controlled the Skybreaker to leave the sea, and then a white cloud formed under the ship and carried the Skybreaker to fly far away. This scene shocked the soldiers on the warship. Their mouths were so wide that an egg could be stuffed in. Hey, hey, hey! Why is the pirate ship flying? Attack! Attack quickly! The warship suddenly became busy, and shells were filled into the barrels one by one. Bang! 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 Instantly, dense shells flew towards the Skybreaker, but these shells could not get close to the Skybreaker. Some of them were blocked by the flames and exploded in advance, and some were chopped into pieces by the sword light. The soldiers could only watch the Skybreaker take off and fly quickly into the distance. Cough cough cough. Luo Te could no longer hold back the sweetness in his throat, and it overflowed from the corner of his mouth. Looking at the old man who was just breathing slightly on the sea, he said, you are worthy of being a marine hero. You are really strong. Ha 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 ha. My strength is not as good as before, but I can still deal with a kid like you. Garp clenched his fists and made a creaking sound. Then he said, kid, my promise still counts. If you report to the naval headquarters with me now, I promise you will get the rank of Rear Admiral. Luo Te shook his head. Mr. Garp, I said I don't want to be a lackey of celestial dragons, so don't persuade me. I have to say that it's very satisfying that you killed celestial dragons. I hate celestial dragons too. Garp couldn't help but give Luo Te a thumbs up. Vice Admiral Garp. Vice Admiral Garp. Hearing the various voices coming from the warship, Garp hurriedly changed the subject. Haha, did I say anything just now? Then just pretend I didn't say anything. Withdraw, withdraw. Kid, since you don't plan to go back with me, I can only take you back by force. Luo Te shook his head. Mr. Garp, goodbye. After that, he fired an electromagnetic catapult and flew away. Looking at Luo Te's back, Garp was caught off guard. What happened? He was so eager to fight just now, why did he just leave? He came to his senses and laughed. Ha 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 ha, he really got away, funny kid. Chapter 34. Climbing Upside Down Mountain. Skybreaker. Just as everyone was worried, a stream of light flew towards the Skybreaker. Captain. Luo Te, Luo Te. Ding, congratulations host for completing the selection. Rewards. Advanced Conquerors 1, Top Physique 1, Limited Edition Garp Dog Head Hat 1, Senzu Beans 1000, Skybreaker upgraded to Advanced, System Space 50*50. Ahem. I'm fine. Luo Te took out a Senzu Bean from his pocket and swallowed it. In just a moment, Luo Te's injuries had gradually recovered. But his face was still a little pale. Merge all cards. Ding. Fusion successful. For a moment, Luo Te's momentum became stronger again. Luo Te. How are you? Nami ran to Luo Te and looked at Luo Te with a distressed look. Luo Te raised his hand and touched Nami's head and said, Nami, it's okay. I gained something after fighting with Garp. Hearing this, the other 4 people were relieved. Luo Te looked at everyone. How did you gain from this actual combat? Seeing the 4 people nodded, it seems that they have also improved a lot. Nami, thank you for your hard work in sending the Skybreaker out safely. After hearing Luo Te's words, Zoro and others realized that it was not Luo Te who controlled the ship to fly, but Nami who controlled the ship to fly away. Kuro frowned and looked at Luo Te with some doubts. Nami said, as soon as I got on the ship, Luo Te gave me a devil fruit. I am now a Cloud fruit ability user. As he said this, Nami's whole body was elementalized and turned into a cloud in front of everyone. Originally, Luo Te planned to go to Sky Island to snatch Enel's fruit and give it to Nami. But since the system rewarded a Cloud fruit, Luo Te naturally gave the Cloud fruit to Nami first. Luo Te thought that the Logia Cloud fruit was more suitable for Nami. First, Nami is born with the ability to sense the weather, and with the Cloud fruit, she can control and change the weather. Second, the Cloud fruit can also be a very strong attacking fruit, which can turn into dark clouds to discharge electricity, and can turn into various clouds on Sky Island. Third, Nami is a navigator, and the Cloud fruit can hold up the Skybreaker and control its navigation. Although it is not as good as the Lion fruit of Golden Lion, it is more labor-saving than Luo Te's electromagnetic fruit. In summary, Luo Te gave the Cloud fruit to Nami. Klo and others nodded, which can explain why the ship can still fly in the air at such a distance from Luo Te. Okay, partners, cheer up, our next step is to enter the Grand Line. East Blue is as comfortable as a cradle compared to the Grand Line. Are you mentally prepared? Luo Te looked around at everyone, and everyone's face was more or less filled with excitement. Nami, put the boat on the sea. It's boring to just fly to the Grand Line. I want to see how magical the Upside Down Mountain is, which blocks nearly 80% of the ships from entering the Grand Line. After listening to Luo Te's words, Nami controlled the clouds under the boat to descend little by little, and finally put the boat on the sea. Vice Admiral Garp, why don't we intercept Luo Te and his group at Upside Down Mountain? A soldier was puzzled by Garp's decision. Garp responded with his right little finger drilling his nose. Ha ha ha, you also saw that the little devil's boat can fly. We can't intercept it. Maybe he has already flown to the Grand Line. The soldier asked tentatively. What about us? His meaning was already very clear. Garp shook his head helplessly. Let's go back to Marineford. The vacation can only end. However, Luo Te and his group slowly moved towards Upside Down Mountain on the sea. As time passed little by little, everyone was digesting the experience of that battle in the past few days. At this time, the sky became gray and it began to drizzle. Hey, there's a mountain ahead. Everyone hurried out of the cabin, and a series of towering red mountains appeared in front of everyone. Nami murmured. This is the red line. What? This is the red line? Zoro looked at the huge red peak in front of him with some doubt. Kuro didn't have any special expression, he was always so calm and gentle. Linger looked at the huge red obstacle in the direction of the bow, hiding behind Nami and grabbing her clothes with some fear. Nami, let the boat fly quickly. If we continue like this, we will hit the red line. At this time, Zoro didn't know where to move a wine barrel and placed it in the middle of the crowd. Luo Te, who had read the original book, instantly understood Zoro's intention. This sense of ritual seemed useless, but it could make everyone firmly engrave their dreams in their hearts, and it could also bring good luck. I saw one foot on it and said, my dream is to become the world's greatest swordsman. Then Luo Te also put his right foot on it, my dream is to overturn this world and let everyone in the world live freely. Then it was Klo, my dream is to see the ugliness of this world and help Luo Te build a peaceful world. Ling. My dream is to become stronger, and then follow Luo Te and lend him a hand. Nami. My dream is to draw all the sea maps in the world. She glanced at Luo Te with her eyes and said in her heart, always stay with Luo Te. Then everyone raised their feet. Oh. Seeing that the skybreaker was about to hit the red line, Nami took out a sketch and placed it on the barrel. Look, this is the only way to get from the inverted mountain to the Grand Line. After listening to Nami's explanation, everyone felt a little incredible, and even Chloe's expression showed a bit of excitement. Nami, since you said that the probability of the ship being destroyed and people being killed is 90%, I think we should just fly over there. Linger was scared. She didn't want to sink to the bottom of the sea without knowing why. Nami said confidently. Don't worry, if it really hits, Luo Te will also take action, right? Luo Te nodded. Also, don't think that the skybreaker is so fragile. Even if it hits red line, it won't be damaged. Nami stood up and walked to the bow. She squinted her eyes and said excitedly. Milasan, look, that's the waterway of the upside-down mountain. Everyone walked to the bow deck excitedly. Zoro looked incredulous. Are you kidding? It's so narrow. How can the skybreaker get through? Linger looked at it, his legs trembling a little, but he still defended Nami. Green algae head, you have to trust our navigator. Turning to Nami, right, Nami-chan? Nami jumped up and punched Zoro. Of course, I can take you anywhere you want to go. As the skybreaker continued to move forward, the storm began to rage, and many Uzumaki appeared on the surrounding sea. And a river channel upstream gradually appeared in front of everyone. Zoro opened his eyes and said, Are you kidding me? The river is really flowing upwards. It was the first time that Crow saw the upside-down mountain, and he was secretly amazed in his heart. It should be that the sea current is flowing towards the red line, and it just happened to meet a gap, and the seawater flowed upward along the river. And those sea currents that did not squeeze into the river formed Uzumaki around the red line. Crow pushed his eyes habitually and continued, Have you found a strange phenomenon? This river seems to be artificially mined, and the purpose may be to allow people from all over the world to enter the Grand Line. After listening to Crow's words, Luo Te also touched his chin thoughtfully. Hey, cheer up, we'll enter the channel soon. Nami's voice sounded, interrupting Luo Te and the others thinking. Luo Te used electromagnetic force to control the skybreaker to drive into the river. Linger turned into a ball of fire and floated on the boat, exclaiming, We are really climbing a mountain. How magical. The red line is very high, so high that people from all over the world may never be able to climb it in their lifetime, so high that the people living on it overlook the world like gods, so high that no one has ever really seen its full view in 800 years. The sea water rushed along the river to the top of the mountain, and waves bloomed on the top of the mountain. Under the sunlight, the rainbow was so colorful. Zoro looked at the top of the mountain and murmured in his heart, Cross this mountain to reach the Grand Line, where Haki Mahawk is. Nami. The weather there is changeable, there are countless treasures and endless sea maps. Linger. Is that the Grand Line that Luo Te said? Chloe. Over there is a world wider than East Blue, with the most complicated human hearts and struggles. Chapter 35. Crocus and Laboon. Too fast, too fast. After the skybreaker passed the top of the upside-down mountain, it slid down the waterway at a very fast speed. The two girls hugged each other at this time, and their tears were about to flow out. After passing through the clouds, Luo Te looked and did not see the wall. The skybreaker arrived at the sea surface of Gemini Cape very smoothly. Just as everyone was preparing to celebrate their survival, an old voice sounded in the splashing waves. Hey, don't you see an old man sunbathing here? When the water dispersed, everyone saw an old man who looked like a flower sitting on a lounge chair on the shore. At this time, the old man was wet all over by the waves splashed by the skybreaker, and he was very embarrassed. Luo Te raised his eyebrows and couldn't help muttering in his heart, Is it true that we met again? This old man who looks like a flower is naturally the lighthouse keeper of Gemini Cape Crocus. I'm sorry. Linger quickly bowed to Crocus and apologized. Little devils, do you think that this matter will be over just by apologizing? Crocus glanced at Luo Te and the others who had broken through the air. What is the old man going to do? Luo Te's voice sounded in Crocus's ears. After hearing the old man's words, Luo Te came to Crocus' side with an electromagnetic teleportation. The old man's pupils shrank slightly, and he was secretly shocked in his heart. Teleport? Such a fast speed. After all, he had been a ship doctor on the ship of Roger, the Pirate King, for several years, and naturally experienced many big scenes, and his expression did not change much. His tone was still calm. Hey, don't get so close, it will kill people. Hearing Crocus' words, Zoro put his hand on the handle of the Wado Ichimonji, and the corners of his mouth twitched slightly and said, Oh, who will die? Linger and Nami also took a fighting stance. The old man stared at Zoro and replied, I. Oh, so you will die. Crow, let me go, I'm going to chop him up. If Crocus hadn't grabbed Zoro's collar, Zoro would have rushed up and chopped Crocus into pieces. The old man's eyes flashed across the faces of everyone on the skybreaker, and he didn't say anything. Instead, he took off his clothes that were already dripping in front of everyone. Hey, old pervert, don't take off your clothes in front of a beautiful woman. Linger and Nami covered their eyes and ran into the cabin. The old man twisted the wet clothes in his hands and put them on again, and said to Luo Te beside him, "Then you are Luo Te, the pirate who was in the limelight recently, right?" Luo Te didn't hide anything, but nodded and said, "I didn't expect my reputation to have spread here?" The old man turned his head and stared at Luo Te for a while. Luo Te got goosebumps all over his body because of being stared at, and he quickly took a step back. Could this old man have that kind of special fetish? Thinking of this, he felt a chill in his heart. Haha, Luo Te, there are not many people in this world who dare to attack celestial dragons' ships directly. You are one of the few. If this is not famous, then what is famous? After a pause, he continued, and Luo Te, you don't look as evil as the reports say. Luo Te moved back again, keeping a safe distance from the perverted old man. Then he exhaled and said, "Isn't the report of Marine always like this?" Crocus straightened the wrinkles on his clothes and said, "You are right." At this moment, Klo and others also came to the shore. Snap! Linger snapped his fingers, and several flames fell on everyone's clothes, drying everyone's clothes in an instant. At this time, Crocus carefully looked at Luo Te and his group, and said with some sigh, "Luo Te, you guys are not simple." But at this moment, a huge whale cry sounded. "Laboon! Is it starting again?" Crocus then jumped into the sea. "What is that?" Nami pointed at the huge creature that appeared on the shore. "Is it a whale?" Crocus looked at the creature with scars all over its head in disbelief. Luo Te nodded and said, "This is an island whale. It is said that it can grow to the size of an island when it grows up." Linger's eyes widened. Is it so exaggerated? By the way, that old man just jumped into the sea. Will he be in danger? As soon as he finished speaking, Nami pointed at the giant creature and said in a trembling voice, "Look, that old man is in the mouth of the whale." Luo Te raised his head and said, "Don't worry, the old man is fine." But before everyone could react, the whale directly hit Redline with its head. Bang! Suddenly, water splashed everywhere, and the ground under their feet shook. What is he going to do? A question mark suddenly floated in everyone's mind. Luo Te naturally knew the reason, and also knew that Crocus could calm Laboon down. Sure enough, the whale calmed down after a while, and Crocus also came ashore. "Hey, Grandpa, what is that? Why did you hit the red line?" Linger looked at the old man in front of him and couldn't help asking. "So that's how it is. It's really a poor whale." After listening to Crocus's story, Linger wiped the tears from the corners of his eyes and was a little moved. Nami also said at this time, "Have you ever thought about looking for the Rumbar pirates?" Crocus shook his head. "I looked for them, but I didn't find them. There is not even any news about them." Crocus pushed his glasses. It has been 50 years. Even if they are still in this sea area, it is impossible that there is no news at all. So is there a possibility that they are no longer in this sea area? Zoro took a sip of wine and said, "Could it be that they have left the Grand Line and returned to the Four Seas?" Crocus shook his head. According to the description of Old Man Crocus, that group of people would not abandon their companions, so they were either captured by the Marine or sank into the sea. Crocus took a piece of fish and shook his head. It should be these two possibilities. "Then didn't you tell Laboon?" Nami was a little confused. Logically speaking, Laboon should be able to understand and not hurt himself like this. Crocus looked up at the sky and sighed slowly. Alas, it's useless. Laboon still thinks that this red line blocked its reunion with the Rumba pirates. Nami turned to look at Luo Te beside her. Her eyes were obviously red, and she said, "Luo Te, Laboon is so pitiful, help it." In Nami's eyes, Luo Te is omnipotent. Luo Te gently touched Nami's head and said, "Of course." Luo Te slowly flew to the top of Laboon's head, stretched out his hand to shoot a section of edited electromagnetic waves into Laboon's head, and then threw a senzu bean into Laboon's mouth. The Luo Te pirates looked at Luo Te's actions, and then buried their heads in enjoying the whole fish feast prepared by Linger. Crocus saw that Laboon did not feel any discomfort and turned his head to look at Luo Te again, with a puzzled look on his face. Just when Luo Te was about to explain, a table-sized drop of water smashed everyone's dining table to pieces. Everyone looked up and found that it was Laboon's tears. At this moment, it was crying and tears were falling. Luo Te smiled and said to Laboon, "Don't hurt yourself in the future. Those people will come here in 2 years at most." Laboon nodded his head with a Crocus then saw that the scar on Laboon's head had disappeared. Luo Te waved to Crocus and the others, "Let's go, guys. Let's go to the next destination." After that, Luo Te teleported to the Skybreaker. Crocus originally wanted to thank Luo Te, but he just wanted to leave like that. He hurriedly handed a star compass to Nami. Nami and the others also got on the boat. Luo Te suddenly thought of something and flicked his finger, and 3 magic beans turned into streams of light and fell into Crocus' hands. "Mr. Crocus, this is the magic bean. No matter how much injury it suffers, it can recover. As long as there is a breath, it will not die." Looking at the Skybreaker going away, Crocus murmured, "Luo Te, will you be the person Roger is waiting for?" Chapter 36. Bounty increases again. Fugang the 1-5 Terrace Ju Dian Rakuten Travel HK. 515 Hong Kong dollars Rakuten Travel. Ri Ben Sheng Ne Ling Xian Wang Sheng Lu Sheng Shi. Luo Te, what did you do to Laboon? Why did it suddenly change its nature? On the deck, Nami held Luo Te's hand and asked softly. Luo Te looked at the others and found that their eyes were full of questions. However, Luo Te just smiled and said, it's just a memory. 2 years later, a group of people will come to Gemini Cape, and that group will find the only member of the Rumba Pirates who is still at sea. But why do you know that? Linger poked his cheek and asked curiously. Other companions on the ship have always had a question, that is, why Luo Te knows so many things at a young age, like a prophet. Luo Te touched his chin and said, because I am the savior chosen by the will of this world. His expression was ultimate arrogant. Shay, Kuro and Zoro pursed their lips. This is not the way to fool people. Since Luo Te didn't say anything, they went to practice. Linger ran over and hugged Luo Te's arm and said, Luo Te, you must have some difficulties. I support you. I'm going to train. After that, Linger also walked away. Luo Te gently rubbed Nami's little hand. Nami, why don't people believe me when I tell the truth? Nami looked up at Luo Te. Luo Te, I believe you no matter what you say. Then she suddenly stood on tiptoe and pecked Luo Te's cheek, broke away from Luo Te's hand and ran into the cabin. Luo Te looked at her running away and touched the warmth on her cheek, shaking her head. This girl is doing a sneak attack. Naval Headquarters, Marineford. Vice Admiral Garp. Good morning, Vice Admiral Garp. Garp got off the warship wearing his iconic dog head hat, and many soldiers in the port saluted him. The young soldier's eyes were full of admiration. Garp took off his hat and responded one by one. At this time, a soldier ran to Garp and saluted, then helped Garp put on his cloak. He said, Vice Admiral Garp, the Marshal asked you to go to the Marshal's office when you come back. Garp nodded, it's just that I want to find him. Marshal's office. Sengoku was pacing inside, looking a little anxious. On the stool beside him, Staff Officer Crane was sipping tea. Bang. The door of the office was kicked open, followed by a hearty voice. Sengoku, I'm back. Sengoku stopped and turned to look at the door. Garp, how many of my doors have you kicked? Garp walked to the sofa and sat down, saying, Sengoku, don't be so stingy, isn't it just a door? Sengoku wanted to say something else, but shook his head again. Forget it, I'll settle with you later. Let's talk about Luo Te first. Staff Officer Crane also put the teacup in his hand on the table at this time, looking at Garp, with a worried look between his eyebrows. Because the battle between Garp and Luo Te in East Blue had been reported back to the headquarters by his soldiers. According to the soldiers' words and the images that affected the Den Den Mushi at that time, Luo Te's strength was comparable to Garp in a short time. To be honest, they didn't believe that a kid who was only in his teens would have such strength. Garp picked up the teapot and poured himself a cup of tea, and slowly said, well, it should be similar to the news you got. That kid is indeed quite powerful. Even I may not be able to take him down in a short time. After getting Garp's affirmative answer, Sengoku's expression became a little ugly. Seeing that he could apply for retirement in a few years, Luo Te came out and caused such a mess. Crane asked, he seems to have some kind of demon fruit power, right? Garp took a sip from the teacup, turned his eyes to Crane, and said, it seems to be demon fruit power. He can fly. It doesn't seem to be moonwalk, and he doesn't use any other props. Crane pondered for a while, and the devil fruit ability to fly kept flashing in his mind. He guessed, could it be the gravity fruit? Garp then told him another shocking news, but it doesn't seem to be a devil fruit. He was thrown into the sea by me, and he flew into the air without any impact. What? Sengoku slapped his hands on the table, with a bit of disbelief in his tone. He didn't believe that a mere mortal body could float in the air, but he didn't dare to believe that there was a demon fruit power that was not afraid of seawater. But no matter what the reason was, it seemed that this phenomenon could not be explained. Crane also frowned at this time. Even in her cognition, this situation was simply a miracle. She asked in disbelief, are you sure he flew? And are you sure he was really thrown into the sea by you? Ha ha ha, Crane-chan, I'm old but not blind. I'm sure of these two. This time, Sengoku and Crane were speechless and could only attribute this phenomenon to the magical devil fruit. At this time, Sengoku spoke again, and the strength of his crew members should not be underestimated, especially Kuro and that Roronoa Zoro. Crazy interrupted at this time. Well, I didn't expect that the two little girls were also Logi a demon fruit power. It's unimaginable if they grow up. Sighed and continued. Now their strength is no longer something that the branch can deal with, so make a bounty for them as soon as possible. Skybreaker. Nami held a roll of newspaper in her hand and poked the newspaper pigeon in front of her. Why is the price still rising? Is your selling a little too expensive? I won't buy it if the price increases next time. The newspaper pigeon looked at the orange-haired woman in front of her and scratched her head with her wings helplessly. Nami. Any news? At this time, Linger came to Nami with 2 glasses of pear juice. Nami reached out to take a glass and placed it on the coffee table next to the recliner and began to read. Oh, is there another rebellion in another country? These days are really not peaceful. Just as Nami continued to turn the page, several bounty orders fell out. Linger picked up one quickly. Whose bounty could it be? Turning it over, he exclaimed, Luo Te. What? Is it Luo Te's bounty? Nami quickly put her head over. Ah. Luo Te's bounty has increased so much. Hearing the exclamations of the two women, Luo Te and others also came to the deck. Crow pushed his glasses and asked, "What's wrong?" Zoro picked up a few bounties from the ground and said, "Isn't this our bounty?" Everyone placed the 5 bounties on the lawn in order. Luo Te only dead 120 Clo dead or alive. 150 million Roar Noah Zoro dead or alive 13400. Nami dead or alive 80 Imera Linger dead or alive. 72 million, We are all wanted criminals? Linger's hands trembled slightly as she held her own bounty. She never thought that she would become a wanted criminal one day, but she has always been a good citizen. But as long as she can stay with Luo Te, she is willing to become a big villain who does all kinds of evil. Zoro held his bounty order, his lips curled up slightly, not bad, the second bounty is more than 130 million. But it's not enough. Then he leaned in front of Clo and took a look at Clo's bounty order, his eyes almost popped out. Why do you have a higher bounty than mine? Clo put the bounty order on the coffee table and said lightly, the amount of bounty doesn't mean anything. Don't focus on such superficial things, practice hard. After all, we are not in East Blue now. Zoro pursed his lips and muttered. Don't act like you see everything. Chapter 37. Alabasta. The news and bounty of Luo Te's gang spread throughout the pirate world, naturally causing quite a stir. East Blue Windmill Village. Kukui, Luo Te is getting stronger and stronger. Now the bounty is already 1.2 billion. It's so cool. Luffy stood in front of Luo Te's bounty with a big piece of meat. Everyone said that the bounty can represent part of the strength. Although Luffy didn't know what 1.2 billion meant, it was definitely very awesome. Ace stood aside, clenched his fists, and was shocked in his heart. Is this Luo Te's true strength? It's really terrifying. There don't seem to be many pirates in the world with such a high bounty. In a few days, Ace himself plans to go to sea. I wonder what kind of bounty he can get with his strength. Shimotsuki Village, Ishin Dojo. A samurai with a ponytail holding a bounty in his hand. His expression can't tell whether he is happy or sad. Murmured. Zoro-kun, is this the path you chose? Then he put down the bounty order, slowly walked out of the dojo, looked up at the clouds in the sky. Maybe this is the arrangement of fate. As long as you move towards your dream, bitterness is sweet. Alabasta. An endless golden ocean, scorched by the sun, every grain of sand is like a grain of gold. The wind whistled, rolling up gusts of dust. Wow. Is this Alabasta? How come it's an endless desert, but it's so hot? Linger was like a curious baby. Pa? Nami snapped her fingers, and a dark cloud suddenly appeared above everyone's head. Nami-chan is so cool. Linger couldn't help but hug Nami's arm and kiss her. Let's go, meet our new partner. After saying that, Luo Te walked forward. Casino Rainy Land, the top office. A woman wearing black tights, a belly-bearing top, and a wide-brimmed hat stood in the middle of the office, reporting to the figure on the sofa on the stage. Mr. Zero, according to the information from the intelligence department of Luo Te works in Bara, Luo Te has come to Alabasta. Luo Te? Is that the pirate Luo Te who attacked celestial dragons? The figure asked after taking a puff of cigar. According to the description of the people below, it is almost certain that he is that person. The two people were Nico Robin and Crocodile. Crocodile said with some disdain. It was just an attack on the celestial dragon's ship, and a reward of 200 million is probably a lot of water. After that, he took the cigar out of his mouth and extinguished it in an ashtray shaped like a crocodile. His expression seemed a little arrogant. As the petals bloomed, the bounty in Nico Robin's hand appeared in Crocodile's hand. Look, this is the latest bounty. According to Morgan's news agency, Luo Te is as strong as Admiral. What, it's this kid? Crocodile was a little bit unbelievable holding the bounty in his hand. After all, Luo Te looked only about 17 or 18 years old. But then, he put on that arrogant expression again. Who cares if he's Admiral or not, I'm a sand crocodile. Nico Robin reminded. Be careful, I don't know what his purpose is in coming to Alabasta this time. If he makes trouble for us, we won't get any benefits. After all, we have almost no information about him. Crocodile threw the bounty into the giant fish tank behind him, and immediately a huge crocodile with a banana on its head tore the bounty into pieces. He stared at Nico Robin. Then what is their purpose in coming to Alabasta this time? Is it also Pluton? Nico Robin shook his head. That's unknown. Maybe we can only know his intentions by asking him in person. Send someone to keep an eye on them at all times, and if it doesn't work, just kill them. Crocodile wiped his neck with his hand. Nico Robin certainly knew that he couldn't deal with Luo Te with his own strength, even with the Baroque members under his command. However, as Mr. Zero's partner and secretary, she could only nod and respond, I know, boss. Then she turned and left the office. Luo Te and his group were still walking in the desert, and every footprint left a deep pit. Hey, Captain Luo Te, can you please not apply gravity? I really can't walk anymore. Linger complained while wiping his sweat. Carrying a heavy load in the desert not only exercises the body but also exercises willpower. If we can't even bear this little bit of hardship, how can we talk about overturning the world? Luo Te rarely had a straight face. Ling pouted his lips and said reluctantly, I know. Someone is coming. Klo pushed his glasses and looked at Luo Te. Luo Te had known about it for a long time. Let's not worry about it, let's see what the other party means. Zoro let go of observation Haki and found that he didn't sense anything. He couldn't help but feel a little unwilling. It's okay if I can't beat Luo Te. Why can't I even beat Klo? It seems that my usual training is not hard enough. Nami and Ling were confused and looked around. There was nothing but desert in their vision, and no one was seen. Forget it, I'll go meet him first. After saying that, Luo Te disappeared on the spot. For Luo Te's sudden disappearance, everyone was no longer surprised, and no one said anything. At this time, a huge tortoise in the desert was slowly moving forward in the desert, holding a pipe and pulling a chartered car. A woman was sitting in the chartered car. Robin, what are you looking for? Is it me? A male voice appeared in the woman's ear. This woman was Robin, who was looking for Luo Te's group. Robin turned her head and saw a strange handsome man sitting next to her, looking at her with a smile. Her heart was suddenly filled with shock. Is this Luo Te? He appeared here out of thin air. Is it teleportation? Yes, I am looking for you according to the boss's order. Luo Te turned his head and stopped staring at Robin, but cast his eyes into the distance. Are you here to ask me the purpose of coming to Alabasta? Robin crossed his legs and tilted his head to look at this handsome guy. Yes, the famous Luo Te. What is the purpose of coming to Alabasta? Luo Te turned back and stared at Robin. With a smile on his lips, he said, I said I came here to find you. Do you believe it? Luo Te was actually very shocked at the moment. He did not expect Robin to be so calm. Robin held his chin with his hand and looked at Luo Te with interest. I wonder why Luo Te came to see me. In fact, she was a little uneasy in her heart. She didn't know why Luo Te was looking for her. Could it be related to Ohara? Otherwise, he didn't think he had any other value besides this. But she knew that no matter what Luo Te wanted to do, she might not be able to choose. After all, with the momentum of the boy in front of her, not many people could resist. And the boy's eyes were particularly deep, and no one knew what he was thinking. It seems that this Luo Te is not just a name without substance, but more terrifying than reported. Luo Te opened his arms, leaned back on the chair, and raised his head. I also want to know the history of this world and uncover the truth of this world. Chapter 38. Nico Robin joins. Robin was stunned. This doesn't seem to be a dream that a pirate should have. In fact, Robin guessed from the beginning that Luo Te must know that she is Ohara's orphan. Even if there is a bounty order, not everyone can say her name at once, because the bounty order was issued when she was 8 years old. But when Luo Te said this, Robin was sure that Luo Te must know her. She looked at Luo Te with a vigilant look on her face. Looking back and seeing Robin's expression, Luo Te knew what Robin was thinking. He stared at Robin's face and slowly said, I want you to help me. My dream cannot be realized without you. Robin couldn't help feeling sad. Sure enough, Luo Te is no different from other pirates. They all come for ancient weapon. She originally thought that the pirates who dared to attack celestial dragons would be different. However, Robin's thoughts were invisible to Luo Te, who possessed the electromagnetic fruit. He explained, I'm not here for the ancient weapon. Don't you think this world is a bit absurd? A group of bandits established the world government, and their descendants claimed to be the descendants of the creator. They also gave themselves a stupid name, celestial dragons. Robin stared at Luo Te in a daze. She actually believed a lot of what he said. She had been to various pirate groups and merchant ships for so many years, and the historical texts she had seen also pointed to this fact. So, I have a dream. Luo Te stood on the old turtle's hat in an instant, stretched out his right hand to the sky, opened his 5 fingers and clenched them tightly. Overthrow this absurd world and establish a new order, a world without bullying and equality for all beings. Robin looked at Luo Te in front of her with burning eyes. She didn't know what to say now. Luo Te turned around and showed Robin a sincere smile. So you want to help me, Nico Robin? Robin was stunned for a moment. She couldn't just follow Luo Te easily based on Luo Te's one-sided words. Over the years, she has witnessed too many intrigues and deceptions. She has seen all kinds of people. Many people say nicer things than Luo Te, but they hide a disgusting face behind their backs. Luo Te returned to his seat. I know you don't believe me yet, but time is the best tool to test people's hearts. So are you willing to make a bet? Luo Te stretched out his hand in front of Robin. Robin looked up at the boy who was much younger than her, and her eyes were still so sincere. After a while, she reached out and held Luo Te's hand. Then let's have a happy cooperation, Captain Luo Te. Happy cooperation. Luo Te gently shook Robin's hand. You have worked hard in your life on the run for so many years. Let me protect you in the future. The collapse of adults often happens in an instant. Robin raised his head and met Luo Te's gentle eyes. Tears were like beads that had broken off the string. Luo Te gently held her in his arms and supported her back. Okay, the nightmare is over, and life will be sunny from now on. Having read the comics, he knew that Robin's mother had been separated from her since she was a child, and everything she knew was buried in the Sea of Fire when she was 8 years old. She became an orphan, and the world government also regarded her as a threat. At the age of only 8, she was carrying a bounty of 79 million. In order to survive, she could only flatter and move around in various organizations. Not to mention a girl, even a grown man would find it difficult to hold on under such circumstances. And this hug was just a comforting hug, without any male and female emotions. It took a while for Robin to come out of Luo Te's arms, with red eyes. I'm sorry, I let you see my embarrassing side. In fact, she was really a little embarrassed. Such a big person actually cried in front of a man who was nearly 10 years younger than her. Luo Te gently wiped away the tears from her eyes. Okay. There are still many poor people in this world who are displaced and desperate. As long as we work together, I believe we can change this world. Robin now completely believes in Luo Te. After all, no one has ever truly understood her suffering. She nodded. Although it is difficult, I am willing to lend you a hand. Let's go pick up our companions. After that, Luo Te used an electromagnetic knife to cut off the chains of the chartered car and the turtle. Then he controlled the car to fly towards Klo and others. The car was very fast and appeared in front of Klo and his group in a short while. Hey, Luo Te, who is she? Seeing Luo Te and a beautiful woman sitting in the same car, Nami pointed at Robin with hostility. Linger's eyes were also a little wrong. Luo Te slowly parked the car in front of everyone, and Luo Te and Robin got off the car one after another. Nami rushed to Luo Te and hugged his arm, as if she was afraid that Robin would snatch it away. Luo Te started to introduce everyone to each other. This is Nico Robin, a historian who can read the history recorded by the predecessors. This is Kuro, the staff officer of Luo Te's pirate group. This is Roronoa Zoro, the swordsman. This is Imera Linger, the cook. This is Nami, the navigator. Luo Te touched Nami's head and whispered, Okay, Nami, we will be partners in the future, get along well. Nami looked up and stared at Luo Te. You smell like her perfume. How can I explain this to you? Luo Te scratched his head a little at a loss. Zoro and Kuro were also holding back their laughter at this moment. They had never seen Luo Te in such an embarrassing state. Seeing this, Robin took out a cloth bag from the ditch and shook it in his hand, muttering, Oh, I just picked up a bag of jewels in the desert. Who should I give it to? Robin, you are so nice. I love you so much. Looking at Nami holding the gems, her eyes turned into gems. Luo Te shook his head helplessly. Let's go meet another partner. Snap. With Nami snapping her fingers, everyone was lifted up by a cloud and rushed towards the oasis. Rainy land. Go see where Luo Te is. Crocodile looked at the agent kneeling on the stage with a somewhat angry tone. Crocodile, no need to look for him, I came by myself. Who is it? Crocodile turned his eyes to the door, and his pupils suddenly shrank. Are you Luo Te? Luo Te spread his hands. It's the real deal. Crocodile frowned slightly and stared at Luo Te, trying to see something from Luo Te's face, but Luo Te was smiling. What are you doing here? Luo Te and his group slowly walked into the office, each finding a place to sit down, not at all shy. Just now, I only paid attention to Luo Te, but now Crocodile noticed that Nico Robin was also with them. Nico Robin. Why are you with them? In fact, Crocodile had just arrived in Alabasta and did not have so many powerful agents under his command. The Baroque works had just been established. Robin had only joined the organization 2 months ago. But he did not expect that Robin, who was extremely efficient and smart, would choose to betray him. Robin did not answer but sat quietly aside. Luo Te said at this time, Crocodile, let's make a deal. Chapter 39. Nefertari Cobra, what deal? That was how Luo Te could talk to Crocodile. If it were anyone else, they would have been sucked dry by the sand fruit. Come and be my partner. Luo Te looked at Crocodile with a smile. Why should I be your partner? What qualifications do you have for me to be your partner? Crocodile's eyes narrowed, and his expression was somewhat unfriendly. Luo Te shook his head and said, I don't want to fight with you. You should listen to my reasons first. Crocodile stared at Luo Te for a while before nodding to signal Luo Te to continue. I know what you came to Alabasta for, nothing more than ancient weapon Pluton. What would you say if I told you that I knew where Pluton was? Luo Te knocked on the table, waiting for Crocodile's answer. Hearing Luo Te's words, Crocodile stood up suddenly. Impossible. How can a 17-year-old kid like you know where Pluton is? Don't care how I know. The historical text of Alabasta does record Pluton, but it is only one of the clues, and Pluton needs a key to be activated. Even if you get the ancient weapon, how can you activate it without a key? Do you think you have the ability to protect this ancient weapon? And do you think the world government can let you get Pluton? Crocodile was stunned on the spot. He only wanted to get the ancient weapon and didn't think about the follow-up problems. After hearing Luo Te's proposal, he gradually felt that this matter would not be so simple. Luo Te teleported to Crocodile's side and said, What can you think of? Can't the world government and marine think of it? Crocodile took a few steps back. You. Who are you? Why should I believe what you said? He didn't believe that a kid could know about the historical text of Alabasta, which also recorded the ancient weapon, Pluton. I am who I am, a young man who is as innocent as can be. Luo Te looked at Crocodile quietly. Why do you know this? Could it be? Crocodile turned to look at Robin. Luo Te snapped his fingers and drew Crocodile's attention. Of course it wasn't Robin who said that. She didn't know there was a historical text here. Crocodile thought for a while and nodded. He also believed that Robin would not do this. Then he asked, "Then who are you?" "Me? I'm a pirate, but I have a dream that doesn't belong to pirates. I want to overturn this world and establish a new order so that there will be no more wars in the world. There will be no more pirates or celestial dragons. There will only be adventurers and the people's army." Luo Te said and looked at Crocodile. "How about it? Isn't my dream more thorough than yours?" Crocodile doesn't have such a huge ambition as Luo Te. He tried his best to make Pluton, just like the clown. After a long time, he raised his head. "Okay, Lousy will go crazy with you for once." In fact, Crocodile didn't want to do it, but when he really saw these 5 people, he found that any one of them was many times more powerful than him. However, after hearing Luo Te's interpretation of this world, he was willing to try to help Luo Te change this world. Luo Te stretched out his hand, Crocodile also stretched out his hand, and the two shook hands. "Welcome to join the Luo Te pirates, you will be glad for your decision in the future." Seeing Crocodile join, Crocodile's face was also smiling. Open black lens bracket ding. Congratulations to host for the progress of the task of finding a partner +2, and get rewards. Paramecia Devil Fruit 2, System Space 50*50. Skybreaker upgraded to the top level, Robin's same cowboy hat 1, Crocodile's same cigar 1, Senzu Beans 1000. Close black lens bracket. Luo Te looked at Crocodile and then at Robin and said, "How about you, are you interested in taking a look at that historical text?" Hearing Luo Te's proposal, Robin's eyes flashed with a gleam, and he nodded, "I want to take a look." Not only Robin and Crocodile were interested, but Chloe and others also wanted to see this magical way of recording history. Then let's go to the palace. "Hello, Mr. Luo Te, the king ordered me to greet you here, please follow me." As soon as Luo Te and his party arrived outside the palace, a soldier had already been waiting there. Luo Te nodded, "Thank you for your hard work." At this moment, Robin was a little amused, and cast a look at Crocodile, "Look at my face." Crocodile shook his head helplessly. Looking at the soldier who was walking in front with trembling legs, Luo Te touched his chin with some amusement and asked, "Am I that scary?" The soldier did not speak, but his steps became obviously a little disordered. After walking a long flight of stairs, everyone came to the hall. At this time, the atmosphere in the hall was very tense, and Luo Te pulled the corner of his mouth imperceptibly. It turned out that they regarded him as a big villain. Looking up, the king of Alabasta, Neferutari Cobra, was sitting on the main seat. Cobra's temples were sweating at this moment, and he was thinking about how to delay Luo Te for a little longer, so that Ikalem could take Vivi further. Luo Te cleared his throat and said, "Nefer D Cobra, I have heard of your great name for a long time." Cobra's pupils shrank. "What did you say? How do you know this name?" His heart was surging in an instant. Except for the family tree locked in the safe, few people knew this name. Even his daughter Vivi didn't know this name. He didn't know where Luo Te knew this name, and his heart sank to the bottom of the valley in an instant. He knew that if he didn't do it well today, he would be doomed. Nefert, D. Nefert. Hearing this name, Robin always felt familiar as if he had seen it somewhere before. Luo Te did not answer directly. "Don't worry about how I know it. I want to talk to you alone next, okay?" Cobra thought for a while and nodded in agreement. Hearing Luo Te say that name, he also wanted to know how Luo Te knew it. "King, no. Please don't be alone with him." As the king's former guard, Gaga was unwilling to hear that his king was going to face this pirate with a bounty of 1.2 billion alone. In his cognition, pirates are a group of bad guys who do all kinds of evil and are bloodthirsty. If his king stays alone with Luo Te, his life may be in danger. "Gaga, I know what's going on. You guys go out. I also want to talk to Mr. Luo Te alone." Gaga wanted to say something, but when he met Cobra's firm eyes, he could only lead the king's guards out of the hall. Cobra looked at Luo Te and his group and said, "I wonder what Mr. Luo Te wants to talk to me about alone." He has now put life and death aside. Since they received Luo Te's arrival in Alabasta, he asked Belle and Ikalem to take Vivi away from the country. It is dark now, and I think they have escaped to a safe place. Luo Te grabbed a chair with an electromagnetic attraction, sat down slowly, and said, "Nefertari, one of the 20 royal families 800 years ago, is also a member of the D family. Because they refused to settle in the Holy Land Marijoy, they are no longer recognized." Cobra stood up suddenly. How do you know?" Chapter 40. Historical text. "Don't worry about how I know." Luo Te slowly stretched out 2 fingers and said lightly, "I have 2 purposes for coming here now. First, I want to visit the historical text that you have guarded for 800 years. Are you here for the so-called ancient weapon?" Cobra sighed. It seems that the attraction of this ancient weapon is really great. He didn't know what was recorded in the historical text they were guarding, but he knew that it was information about ancient weapon. Luo Te came here and said this. He guessed that Luo Te came for ancient weapon without thinking. Luo Te shook his head. "I'm not here for the so-called ancient weapon. I just want to see this history." Cobra knew that the situation was stronger than the person. No matter what Luo Te came for, he had no ability to stop him. If he obeyed, he might be able to save the country. At this moment, Cobra seemed to be dozens of years older. What is the other purpose? Let's not talk about that purpose first. Let's go and see the historical text now. Cobra was a little dejected. The things that their Nefertari clan had guarded for 800 years were about to be taken away by outsiders. Funeral hall. Robin stood in front of a square stone and quietly translated the content for everyone. I never thought that there would be someone who could decipher this kind of text. The last glimmer of hope in Cobra's heart was shattered at this moment. He didn't expect that there would be someone in this world who could recognize this kind of text that was 800 years old. As Robin continued to translate, in 201, Nefertari Kuro came to a desert and led her people to conquer the desert and establish a dynasty. In 247, Nefertari Rex named the desert city Alabasta. In 262, Nefertari Iruka was invited to join the kingdom of God and was named Nefertari di Iruka. In 303, Nefertari di Yofas was forced to join the 20-nation alliance army and participate in the war to destroy the kingdom of God. The Pluton key is in Samu. After listening to Robin's translation, everyone finally realized that this was a piece of stone that recorded the history of the Nefertari clan and the location of the Pluton key. Cobra had already stayed where he was. It turned out that the secret that their clan had guarded for 800 years actually involved the secret of this world. Luo Te nodded to Robin, "Make a copy." Then he patted Cobra's shoulder and said, "This first goal has been completed. Now let's talk about the second goal." Cobra's empty eyes slowly focused, looking at the boy in front of him, with a somewhat sad tone. "You say, I want you to join our Luo Te pirates." Cobra quickly took a step back. "What? You want me, a king, to become a pirate?" Luo Te waved his hand and said, "Of course not to let you become a pirate." Hearing Luo Te say this, Cobra patted his chest and exhaled. "That's good, that's good." But Luo Te's next sentence directly stunned him. "I mean let your entire country join our Luo Te pirates." Nani? Cobra seriously doubted whether he had heard it wrong. He actually wanted a country to join the pirate group. Luo Te saw that Robin had finished the rubbing, waved his hand, and walked out. "Don't rush to refuse. I can make 3 rules with you. First, I will not ask you Alabasta to do anything that is against the law. Second, I will not let you leave the country, I will not interfere with your life, and I can even let you live a better life. Third, I will not do anything bad in your country. Fourth, I will solve the current drought in your country." Listening to Luo Te's conditions, Cobra was a little dazed for a while. At present, it seems that these conditions are good for his country. It is not clear what Luo Te can get. Could it be Vivi? He said uncertainly. "Then what can you get from Alabasta? Or what do you want us to do?" "Let's go to the office and talk slowly. Vivi, why are you still here?" When Cobra brought Luo Te and his party back to the palace, he saw a blue-haired girl sitting in the hall. Next to him stood a flat-faced uncle with strange curly hair. Zoro. This uncle is dressed so strangely, is he a transvestite? Suddenly hearing Cobra's voice, Vivi rushed to Cobra and hugged Cobra tightly. "Father." Cobra looked back at Luo Te a little embarrassed, and then whispered softly in Vivi's ear. "Vivi, why did you come back? Why don't you go far away?" Vivi raised her head, her eyes were red, and her voice was choked. "I know there is danger, but I don't want to be a deserter like this. I'm also the princess of this country and your daughter." Cobra touched Vivi's head and turned to the curly-haired uncle beside him and said, "Ikalem, I told you to take Vivi away, why did you come back?" Ikalem lowered his head and was a little afraid to face Cobra. Luo Te looked at the figure in Cobra's arms and said, "I think this is the princess of Alabasta, Vivi." Hearing Luo Te calling Vivi's name, Cobra quickly protected Vivi behind him and looked at Luo Te with a vigilant face. "What do you want to do, Luo Te? I agree to your request, and please don't hurt my daughter." Alas, Luo Te sighed and said, "Does it really look like such an unforgivable villain?" Robin covered his mouth and chuckled. "A big pirate with a bounty of 1.2 billion, everyone will be afraid." Klo also nodded in agreement. Luo Te said to Cobra helplessly, "I said I am not interested in your lives, and I will not harm your country. We will discuss the details slowly." The group discussed for several hours in the office. When Luo Te walked out of the office, he glanced at Princess Vivi and couldn't help but sigh. "Cobra, you gave birth to a good daughter." Just when the few people were talking in detail, Vivi's continuous questions and constant suggestions almost made Klo unable to cope. There were also many constructive opinions that made everyone excited. It can be said that he is born with the physique of a king. Vivi now looked at Luo Te with a blushing face, her eyes full of admiration. She said softly, "I'm sorry, Lord Luo Te, we misunderstood you just now, and didn't know you were so great." Just now, she heard Luo Te's dream and his plan in the office, which was simply unheard of. She couldn't help wanting to see the prosperous world described by Luo Te. Luo Te smiled and said, "There is nothing great or not. I just experienced the life of the lower class and wanted to change it. It's also a selfish dream. Lord Luo Te, I believe that if we work together, this dream will definitely come true." The little girl clenched her fist and cheered for Luo Te. Ikalem and Cobra walked behind Luo Te. Ikalem looked at the two people walking side by side in front and whispered in Cobra's ear. Ma, hey, Lord King, do you think Princess Vivi likes Luo Te? Will Luo Te become your son-in-law at that time? Cobra nodded and said, that feels good, but Lord Luo Te seems to have no shortage of women around him, such as the little girl with orange hair.